looking for sci-fi and everybody born in 1994. Why did I just say that? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's because when you're watching this episode, it's my birthday, my 30th birthday. I'm a 94 baby. And to celebrate, we're going to talk about some movies from 1994. And here with me today is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Eric White.
Hey everyone, excited to be here. I was not born in '94, so this will be an interesting episode for me. I was 9 in '94,
Oh,
so
wow.
I remember '94 pretty well, actually. Yeah, there's a lot of movies that came out in '94. A lot of good movies came out in '94,
Sweet.
but excited to be here.
Yeah. And we got from Alabama, Mr. Atson Jackson Harbor. How's it going, man?
Howdy, y'all. It's all right. I was
And,
11 in 1994.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I was 0.
0.
Yeah.
Birth.
And last but not least, you know him from the Exorcist review and the Muppet Christmas Carol review, straight from the Fear God podcast, Mr. Fantastic himself, Reed Lackey.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. Now, my mom was supposed to be on this episode, but unfortunately, something came up at her job, and she will not be joining us. So,
She will be sorely missed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Indeed.
so I will be talking about her movies that she picked, because we actually are picking 2 movies each, to talk about, and so yeah, I'll talk. So I'm technically talking about 4 movies, mine 2 movies and then her 2 movies, but yeah, so she's definitely going to be sorely missed. But anyways, you guys excited for this?
Yeah.
I can't wait, man. This was, if I may just say out the gate, it was a thrill to prepare for this conversation. I have to watch a lot of new movies and try to keep pace with a lot of, what's recent. And I rewatch movies. I do actively, but it was fun to pull up movies from 1994, some of which I have not seen in, nearly 2 decades. And it was just a blast to prepare for this conversation. So this was fun. I had a really good time. I'm excited.
So yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm definitely excited for this. This and the next episode, I'm really excited for too. But we'll get to that here in a second. Jackson or Eric, do you guys have any thoughts about this episode that we're about to do?
About the year 1994?
Yeah.
I remember my 2nd grade art projects. No, I actually don't have too many memories about '94. I remember really being in the movies around this time.
Okay.
And really being excited about The Mask for some reason. Like really wanting to see the mask of everything.
It was the year of Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. Jim Carrey was having a heyday. Yeah, he was.
It's like 3 movies in 1 year. Yeah.
3 huge hit movies.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. Which is the one I feel like has aged the best. But
yeah.
Ace
Ventura has not aged well. Yeah.
I think to that point, I think Ace Ventura has aged the worst. Dumb and Dumber was on the very rigorous short list of films I almost considered discussing. I love Dumb and Dumber.
Same.
I think Dumb and Dumber is great. It was, I think, either the next year or the year after that he did Liar Liar. God, I love Liar Liar. Man, Liar Liar is
I
so
feel like that was later. That was like
97. 97.
Oh, it was much later then. I thought it was like 95.
That one's
no.
really good.
No, I think the next thing he did was like Cable Guy, wasn't it? Wasn't that 96?
That was like 96.
Year. Yeah,
he was in Batman Forever in 95.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was his big movie of 95.
Yeah. My personal favorite Jim Carrey movie is The Truman Show. I just relate to that movie.
Wonderful film.
Truman Show's amazing. Wonderful. Yeah.
So real quick, Jackson, did you have anything you want to say about 94 before we get into housekeeping?
It was a good year for kids movies.
Oh yeah.
I was looking at the list. It was like I loved all the kids movies that year. It was like Little Big League and Little Giants, other movies with the word Little Rascals, Little Women, lots of little movies.
On the big screen, little movies on the big screen.
Little movies on the big screen. North came out that year, which I think is kind of underrated.
Yeah.
Everybody hates that movie except for me and my friend Benji. Oh, D2, The Mighty Ducks. It was a good year for kids sports movies.
It really was.
Angels in the Outfield was that year. Yeah. Good year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so before we get to 1994, or before we get back to 1994, I do have one quick housekeeping real quick. The next episode is going to be our review of Terminator 1 and 2 for the 40th anniversary of the Terminator franchise. And I'm so excited for that because I love Terminator. Like, Terminator 2 is my favorite action movie of all time.
Great flicks.
It's up there. Yeah.
Great flicks.
But yeah, let's get back to 1994. And let's sort of hop into the DeLorean time machine back to 1994. And
that movie came out in 85.
Yeah, but I know, but it's time travel reference. There, Jackson, don't yuck my yum.
You know my role on this. It's to derail you. That's what I do on this show.
You do
this is why we have 3-hour-long episodes.
All right, but anyway, let's hop into the DeLorean time machine. Because and let's talk about some stuff that happened in 1994. Because in 1994, Bill Clinton was our 42nd president. Also, the Dallas Cowboys became back-to-back Super Bowl championships.
Yeah.
On TV, people watched ER, Friends, Ancient Mysteries, The Stand, Touched by an Angel, Party of Five with my girl Nev Campbell. The Magic School Bus.
Party of Five 94? I feel like oh man, I thought that was so much later. Now I feel old. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Babylon 5 and Spider-Man, the animated series.
Oh, yeah.
We also had the comeback of Woodstock with Woodstock 94 to an estimated audience of 350,000 people.
Oof.
Not as bad as Woodstock 99. So
oh gosh.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That was something.
It's a good documentary on Netflix, by the way, if you haven't seen it, about that fiasco.
Yeah. We also had the unfortunate suicide of Kurt Cobain, the friend musician, which I actually just found out that happened a month before my birthday.
Holy shit.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, so April 5th, and it's my birthday's May 5th, which is when you're watching this.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. Yeah, very sad, very talented person for sure. We also had the birth of Yahoo and Amazon, for better or worse.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I didn't know they both came out the same year. Huh, interesting.
I didn't know that either. We had the launch of the first PlayStation video game system. We also had classic albums like Nirvana's Unplugged in New York City. Nick Cave and the Bad
one of the
Seeds.
best.
Oh yeah, for sure. We also had Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Let Love In, which featured Red Right Hand. Going back to the team.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, we have Oasis's Definitely Maybe, Beastie Boys, Ill Communication, Dookie, or Green Day by Dookie, or Dookie by Green Day. Soundgarden, Super Unknown, another grunge musician who sadly passed away. And we also have Weezer's debut.
Blue album? Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue.
And this is timely because he just passed away. We also had the infamous O.J. Simpson.
O.J. trial. I was about to say, if you didn't mention it, I was like, that was like the biggest news story of that whole year.
Absolutely.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And then getting to the main topic, which is movies. old Steven Spielberg had a big year at the Oscars when he won best motion picture for Schindler's List, which is probably his most
and director. Yeah, and won Best Director, which has eluded him for many years.
Yeah,
He was very upset when he didn't get nominated for Jaws.
Yeah, well, and then Jurassic Park won some Oscars.
Oh, sure, yeah,
like visual effects.
Visual effects.
Yeah, that was his really big year as a director. Well, 93 was, but
yeah,
culminating in the Oscars of 94. Yeah,
so
his winning year.
That's awesome. But you guys ready to get into movies of 94?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep,
do it. Jump right in.
I usually let a guest go first, but since this is my big birthday episode, they let me go first.
Drew's being a diva, y'all.
So how we're gonna do this is we got 2 movies each. And we'll just go around and we'll talk one movie at a time. So I'll go first with my first movie. And before we start, I gotta ask you guys a question. Do you know what you call a Royale with cheese in Paris?
A Royale with cheese.
No, no,
you messed it up.
Call a quarter pounder with cheese. But you know what it is. It's Pulp Fiction.
Royale with cheese.
I freaking love this movie. It's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. This movie's amazing. I just love all the characters. I love the banter. I love all the dialogue. I mean, there's just so many classic lines in this movie. You have lines like, "I'm the foot fucking master," and "Zed's dead, baby." I love the whole subplot with Travolta and Uma Thurman. I think that's a lot of fun. When they're in the diner, Jack Rabbit Slim.
I mean, the whole movie is just subplots. Like it is just like a bunch of vignettes, which is kind of wonderful.
I think the reason why I just love this movie so much is I like a lot of these movies that are very off kilter, like they're not very mainstream, like they just do stuff. Like movies like this, Birdman, Poor Things, Evil Dead, like they're just so punk rock, like they just go completely against the mainstream, which is why I love.
And this is like the year that like really indie movies exploded. Like this movie in particular was just like an $8 million like Miramax nothing movie that made like $100 million and like won Cannes of all things.
Well, that's sort of the power
Palme
of
d'Or.
this movie is it was this punk rock indie like non-mainstream movie that changed the mainstream.
Right.
Yeah.
Because for the rest of the decade, everybody tried to make this movie and no one could.
My college professor in our film studies class, Keith Cassidy, he said something that stuck with me. A lot of things that stuck with me, but about this film specifically, he said in all the films that he had shown to his students, there were 2 films that more than any other made people want to make movies. First was Scorsese's Raging Bull, and the second was Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. He said those 2 movies like make people want to make movies because it's the kind of genius that makes you feel like it's possible because it breaks so many rules. It is deceptive with Pulp Fiction because what Tarantino is doing is actually subversively brilliant and not many people can pull it off.
It's really hard.
It gives this illusion that so many people could pull this off. It's like you can't write dialogue like Tarantino. So you have a whole bunch of knockoffs that are not as good as the dialogue that Tarantino can write. Nobody can write dialogue like him.
The thing, like this movie was part of that kind of, I guess you call it the Hollywood Renaissance with Tarantino, Kevin Smith, Richard Linklater, Spike Lee. Like the new Hollywood movement. Like it's the bunch of directors that just did things differently. Like it was a fresh new look on movie making.
Absolutely.
And one of the things another thing I love about this movie is I love the different blending of like genres. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like it takes place in the 90s, I'm assuming. And
Yeah.
but it feels very 70s. You have like Dick Dale, Mushaloo at the title
Mm-hmm.
sequence. You have like 70s and 60s songs. Like you have
Samuel L. Jackson's whole character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Jerry
Which
curl.
was supposed to be an afro originally. Like it was supposed to be an
Yeah.
afro, and the afro didn't come in, so they were just like, I guess we'll go with this Jerry curl or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I love how like Eric Stoltz is like eating like fruit
Mm-hmm.
like in the middle of the night. That whole drug sequence is hilarious when they're trying to like wake her up from the drug overdose.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
And
Lord.
Eric Stoltz is like, you gotta stab it really hard. Do I stab it 3 times? No, you do it 1 time and you do it really hard. And then as
Stab her in the
soon
heart.
as
Yeah.
that goes into her, like she's just like she just suits up and she just starts freaking out. And then one of Eric Stoltz's roommates or whatever goes like, "That was effing trippy, man."
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's the
I
brilliance of Tarantino is he can
yeah.
do multiple things at once, because that scene is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Hmm.
But also
Mm-hmm.
you've spent so much time with John Travolta and Uma Thurman's characters at this point that you really sort of know them and you
Mhm.
feel for them, and so you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time. You don't want
Right.
this woman to die. She
Right.
seems delightful.
Right. And
You know?
you've set up like the implications of what terrible things could
Exactly.
happen
Yeah,
to
that's the
him
other thing is
if
her
she does
husband is
die.
very
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing. Well, then you have that whole like conversation about Marcellus Wallace like
Mhm.
throwing that one guy off out the window for giving
Tony Rockihara. Yeah.
Tony Rocky Horror, which is one of the best movies ever.
Such a great
Got a
like,
list now.
gangster name. Yeah.
Yeah, well then that leads into the whole like I'm the foot effing master conversation,
Mhm.
which is hilarious. And like Travolta is like, well, that's what's so effing cool about foot massages is because you
Mhm.
know they have like little like signals going on, something like that. And then
There's
like,
a
but what I liked about that scene is like they go up to the door and he's like, yeah, we're not quite ready yet.
Let's hang
And then they
back.
continue the conversation
Yeah.
about foot massages, and then they go back to the door. He's like, okay, let's get into the character. Like
yeah.
this whole interrogation like thing, like that mother effer. That's a whole like act that they're
It's a show.
Right.
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
in this film, like it's hard to undersell the rolling impact. Like honestly, Samuel L. Jackson was born to be a star, but
Mhm.
Pulp Fiction is why Samuel L.
Yeah.
Jackson became a star. John
Yeah.
Travolta, who had been a major star in the 70s, like
Mhm.
really, really popular, Saturday Night Fever and Grease, and
Yeah.
highly respected, but had by 90s sort of drifted into a sort of B, possibly even C list
Oh, yeah.
obscurity.
Yeah.
And then this
Bad.
film rocketed him right back to where he's
Yeah.
headlining films again through the 90s. And then I want to say a word about the structure of the film, which I still
Mhm.
find staggeringly brilliant. So many
Mhm.
people have tried to replicate this by making films non-linear. We're going to tell things out of sequence. But what I think people often miss about the brilliance of Pulp Fiction is that Pulp Fiction is narratively non-linear, but it
Mhm.
is emotionally linear. It builds very
Oh, yeah.
progressively in a very deliberately constructed way.
Mhm.
You get pieces of information that pay
Mhm.
off significant dividends down the line.
Yeah.
And it's really staggering. So many years after I had last seen it, I can't remember the last time I watched this movie. I've seen
Right.
Pulp Fiction multiple times, but it
Right.
had easily been several years
Mhm.
since I'd sat down and watched it last.
Mhm.
And I was just blown away by it again. I'm just like,
Right.
man, this
Yeah.
has an evergreen quality. Some of the jokes, sure, maybe wouldn't fly to the same degree, but the whole
100%.
of
Yeah.
it is completely just mesmerizing.
Right.
And
You get to
brilliant.
that like last, yeah, no, you get to that last speech that Samuel L. Jackson gives in the bar, which is like the
Oh,
inverse of his
man.
like, man, it's so good. It's
Oh, it's
really good.
brilliant.
Well, and that's the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
So
about it
brilliant.
is like the structure of the movie is so much the identity of this movie. That if you would watch it in chronological order, like it would miss the impact. It would be the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like when
it's really circular. That's the structure of this movie. It's more like a circle.
Yeah,
than
it's
anything
like when
else.
Coppola released the Godfather saga and he did it in chronological order. Like it's just, that's cool, but it's like you're not getting the American Godfather Part
Right.
1.
Let's take Memento and watch it in chronological order and see how that
which was
up.
like which was a DVD special feature at one point.
Never did
on like
it.
one of the DVDs. I watched it. It was boring.
It's a vanity.
Not good.
Yeah,
it was
it's a
good.
wasted effort.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about Chris Walken. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, the watch.
That and cowbells are like his entire legacy. And you gotta love a character named the Wolf, played by Harvey Keitel. Like this guy, he probably, other than like Jules, is my favorite character in the movie.
Man, he hangs up the phone. He's like, "I'll be there in 10," and then he's like, "It's like 9 minutes."
Man,
it's so great.
And then one of my favorite lines that he says is, he says it to that one chick that owns the wreckage yard or whatever. And he says to her, "Just because you are a character doesn't mean you have character." But
respecting your elders, you see.
But before we move on to the next movie, I just want to ask you guys just one more question. Did you see a sign outside my garage that said "Dead Guy Storage"? Do you know why you didn't see that sign? Because storing dead guys ain't my fucking business.
Gosh.
Ooh.
The most
it may be one of the
yes.
It may be one of the parts of the movie that has aged the poorest.
It really
is.
It doesn't
feel like
everything up until it's so perfect.
Pure shock value and not
which
he wasn't really saying anything about the word, or there wasn't any such a commentary around him using that word. It was just
originally it was supposed to be Eric Stoltz, I think, right?
Yeah, that was
at some point it was supposed to be Eric Stoltz. Well, no, it was Tarantino in the movie, but like him, the Jimmy character, and then the drug dealer character were like they were up in the air at some point about who was going to play that, and then like Eric Stoltz came in and did the drug dealer character, and so like which I prefer Eric Stoltz as the guy. Like he's really good.
Stoltz
maybe the best.
Stoltz is perfect. No, I'm sorry to have cut you off, but Stoltz is perfect in the role that he's in.
He is.
I do feel like, and if memory serves, I think there was quite a bit of tension and heat around specifically the liberal use of that word coming out of that character.
Spike Lee in particular called it out pretty hard.
Too.
Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson defends it.
Oh, so,
you know,
still does.
There's even within the Black community, there's different opinions of that scene. So I don't know.
I remember watching this movie with a friend of mine who happened to be Black in the 90s and was like, he turned to me at one point and he was just like, huh. I was like, and at that point I was like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
But I also think to the point you're making before we move on, it's not monolithic either, because I would contend that the coolest, strongest, and most admirable character in it is Samuel L. Jackson's character.
That's
100%.
When you leave the film, the kind of hero of the film. I mean, Bruce Willis is definitely like a heroic sort of protagonist. He's got some edges to him, but Samuel L. Jackson emerges when the credits roll. He's kind of the hero of that film, and I think that's part of the nuance and complexity. It doesn't absolve the problematic elements, but at the same time, that's why it's important to engage that tension and say, hey, it's more than one thing happening in this, and we can indict one aspect of it, criticize it, and analyze it, while we shouldn't ignore the converse of it that's happening too. And I think those are important conversations to have. Absolutely.
Of course.
Well, and I've been listening to this podcast called Unspooled with film critic.
I love that show. It's great.
And then that comedian Paul Schrader, whatever his last
Paul
name.
Scheer.
Paul Scheer.
And they were talking about that moment, that line, and they were saying that I think the reason why he chose to say that particular word because he grew up around Black people, so it kind of gave him like permission in his head to use that word.
He did quite a bit. It's a problem over Tarantino's career, but you know.
Here's the thing: like the cleverness of the line, works when you say if you say "dead guy stars" instead of saying the N word. So
Does it have the same shock value? Of course not.
No,
but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
still,
I don't know.
I'm with you.
I can't defend it or admonish it. I don't know. It is part of the history of the movie.
Yeah,
and it is what it
it's
is.
part of the movie. Yeah.
I will say this. Maybe my final note on it. Maybe a case for why at some point why not leave it out is I think specifically with Pulp Fiction, if that exchange was excised, the film would lose none of its power. Like it would lose nothing if that particular exchange was excised. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to go. That's a different conversation. But I do think what's great about that is like where we are right now and how we approach this subject now, we can evaluate and we can say like, okay, whatever reasons exist, if you can chunk this out, you still have a stunning film that is just really powerful and effective and it's great. I love Pulp Fiction.
Just a quick note, since this is happened like a year ago, the story I'm about to tell. I remember for May the 4th, I bought Lego Star Wars, the complete Skywalker saga for my PS5. And I told my dad about it, and it was like for $20. And he said, oh, that's a good price. And so I texted him back, and I did my own version of that monologue that Tarantino does in this movie about the coffee. So like, I don't need you to tell you my coffee is good. I buy good coffee. When my wife buys coffee, she's buys shit. So I did my own version of that about like Lego Star Wars being a good price, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. He's not wrong about good coffee though. Donnie buys bad coffee. I get it. I understand that line. I understand that from like the base of my soul. Good coffee's good coffee.
But anyways, since Reed isn't on here a whole lot, I'll let you go next. But
okay,
do you want to submit to the Goblet of Fire?
Pick either one. Okay, all right. Well, I'll just start with no.
Yes,
oh my God! Listen, real talk. Okay, been a long time since I've seen that movie. I was watching a little marathon of films, about one a night, trying to prepare, getting closer to this. Not gonna lie, genuinely teared up during that opening.
Oh, me too.
Been years since I saw Lion King, and listening to the song and seeing all those animals come together and everything, genuinely teared up. Became a kid again. Listen, there's a very real case to be made that the Lion King is a contender for Disney animated features crowning achievement. It is still, like 30 years on, it is still ubiquitous in culture, way more so than even films that I think are just as great. Like, well, maybe not just as great, but like classics like Pinocchio or Snow White don't penetrate culture the way that the Lion King pierces culture. And I still feel like it is just epic in its scope. It is so focused. Lion King is beautiful. God, I love the Lion King.
Definitely one of the first like sort of epic American animated movies where like it was just as big as like freaking like Lawrence of Arabia or like Spartacus or Godfather.
Well, and it does that in half the runtime too.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing that's so like because Disney was going through a renaissance. Like,
this was
Disney Disney had waffled in this kind of. It's still. I'm affectionate for some of these films, but it's still kind of derided flicks like Robin Hood and stuff like that, where they just kind of floundered, Aristocats and stuff like that. It floundered in trying to really break through. And the Renaissance, to my memory, began with The Little Mermaid. Like The Little Mermaid came out, and The Little Mermaid was like,
the first
oh, man.
Started just rising,
And but then after that, You get freaking Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the
And
Beast.
Beauty and the Beast gets nominated for a legit Best Picture back before they had all the extended categories. Yeah,
Which is crazy. It's basically just Best Picture and then like song categories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about. But
it's crazy. But then after Beauty and the Beast, you get Aladdin, and man, like Disney is popping and crackling. And then as if they could not top themselves, then they come together with this freaking beast of a film that's The Lion King, that is no joke, taking its roots from Hamlet. Like, it's the story of Hamlet,
right,
but recontextualized in this nature-centric, kid-friendly centric lens, with powerhouse songs by Elton John and Alan Menken, and just an incredible voice cast. Freaking Darth Vader, James Earl Jones, delivering such a gravitas for Mufasa. Jeremy Irons, oh my God, Jeremy Irons, chewing the scenery. Oh, it's fantastic.
I got a funny story.
Yeah.
So every time me and my mom watch Die Hard, she always says about Hans Gruber, I like that actor. He was the voice of Scar in The Lion King. I'm like, no, Mom.
She's thinking of Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Get away
Jeremy Irons.
That is funny.
But
that character's brother. Come on.
Yeah. But do any of you guys know the backstory about this movie?
I've heard several pieces of it. I don't know what you're about to highlight, but I've heard several pieces. Yeah.
So they ran into production for this movie the same time that they did Pocahontas. Now, Jeffrey Katzenberg really championed Pocahontas because it was like, West Side Story, and with a more of a story that people were more familiar with.
Right.
Where Lion King was so much different than what it became. It was actually originally called King of the Jungle, and it was about like these two baboon tribes. Not that they could a lion tribe fighting a baboon tribe, and Scar was a baboon.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I don't think I had heard that.
Dark, and it was
that's wild,
grizzly and bloody, and it was completely different.
You can look up any Disney movie though, and they all have stories like that. They go through so much development. They never finish the way they started. Like,
it's kind of amazing.
Completely different.
Yeah, to your point, Jackson, it's kind of amazing we get the films we get, because when you hear how they began, it's like, how in the world did that turn into this?
Right.
Right. But what's funny is that I totally forgot that Nev Campbell voices Simba's daughter in the second one. And so
I never saw that
as soon as you see that character as a baby in
at the end of Lion King,
I'm like, oh, hey, look, it's the Nev Campbell lion.
It's I will say this, God, I mean, like, we have so many movies to get to, but this was the film that put, I mean, it's strange to think about this now as influential of a filmmaker and popular of a composer as he is, but this is the film that put Hans Zimmer on my radar, like as a film composer, and
it's fantastic score.
It's one of his still one of his best scores. I mean, it's super incredible.
The King of Pride rock piece at the end when Simba is walking up the rock in the rain.
It's almost religious for me.
And it's almost religious for me. One of the best pieces of film music I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I'll just start humming it sometimes walking around. Yeah.
It is incredible. It's incredible. And this film holds up so wonderfully. It is because it has, I think, such roots in classical storytelling. But I mean, like I said, I would not argue with someone if they were like, the whole history of Disney animated films, Lion King might be the best. I don't think I would argue with them.
Yeah,
Lion King is
perfectly legit answer. Yeah.
That's cool.
Lion King.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I go to you, Eric, and then I'll go back to me. I'll do one of my mom's picks.
So, sure. Yeah.
Save the best for last.
Absolutely.
I will say before we get off Lion King real quick, I saw Lion King in theaters. Maybe the only one of these movies that I actually saw in theaters in '94.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing like a trailer for it. We were on vacation with my family, and we saw the trailer for this. It was like almost the whole opening of the movie. The trailer for the Lion King was, and
Basically,
it was
yeah.
like, and it's like this voiceover comes. It's like the 30-second movie or animated movie from Disney Animation, whatever it says. And afterwards, I'm like, I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I think I want to see The Lion King next. And he's just like, oh, you didn't hear? It said like the 30-second. Like that was it. You saw all 30 seconds of it. You
No.
can't go see it. I go, and for the longest time, I was just like, what does that mean? Did we see all of it?
Oh my God.
So it
That's funny.
completely blew my mind as an 8-year-old, but
Man,
I love The Lion King.
Yeah.
it's amazing.
But I will go and jump into a movie that maybe a lot of us haven't saw. I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of the way. Just just to get it out of the way. But my first pick would be Crumb, which is a
Yeah.
documentary from 1994. It's a movie that a lot of people probably haven't seen.
Mhm.
And I would say that it's a movie that people who are into arguing about art should watch at some point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
yes.
it does bring up a lot of it's a movie that's very balanced in the way, because most documentaries, especially documentaries about an artist, they usually just want to be praised and like, oh, so
Mhm.
wonderful, he's so good. And this really plays with the idea of like maybe the things that were made weren't great. And so it's a movie that's at odds with itself, but also feels very whole. And it's also a movie that's really not even about art in some ways. It's kind of a wonderful movie about people finding purpose in trauma, which is weird.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
but that's kind of what the movie is, and so like it deals with a lot of Crumb's brothers. First off, Crumb. If anybody hasn't seen it, Drew, have you watched this movie?
No, but I know who it
It's
is.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's about R. Crumb, who was a prolific sort of cartoonist in the 60s and 70s. He rose to fame off of like a couple of cartoons. One was Fritz the Cat, a couple of Cheap Trick album covers.
Oh, nice. I love Keep Trick.
Yeah. Well, I did one Cheap Trick album cover, and then like the Keep on Truckin' graphic. And so he rose to fame, and he basically flourished for a long while in the 80s and 90s, and he produced a lot of stuff that is at times wonderful, beautiful, funny, and then also reprehensible and like horrible and like terrible. And so it's
The
like this
word
dichotomy
grotesque
between
is
yeah
it's very grotesque. It's almost
yeah
the definition of grotesque. Yeah.
right. And so this movie really like allows you to kind of, it's not necessarily wallow in it. The director Terry Zwigoff suffered like really bad depression while he was making it. Like he just happened to know Crumb, and then like they were like, he's like, I want to make a movie about you, and basically Crumb took pity on him and was like, sure, why not? And so
Interesting to
like
think about Crumb taking pity on someone.
right. Um, but the way they talk in such frankness in this movie, and they shot it over 6 years, so I assume there's
Hmm.
bukus of just stuff that wasn't usable or just wasn't what didn't fit into what they were trying to make. But there's so much just like frankness and like this openness that is kind of rare in documentaries sometimes, especially movies about a person who talks openly about themselves. Usually everyone's very candid, especially nowadays. Like this is the 90s, but it's like 30 years removed, but at the same time I don't know. It's a wonderful movie. I love it in the sense that it invokes conversation. Whether you like it, love it,
Yeah.
hate it, whatnot. I don't know. It's to me it's and to Roger Ebert, I guess too. He loved that movie too. But
He did.
to me,
And Siskel.
it's one of my favorite movies. Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. I watch every 5 years or so, and I go like, man,
That's awesome.
I feel terrible, but I also love it. I don't know. I always feel bad watching it. By the end, I'm like, oh, it's like this an American movie, are like my go-to documentaries about the art of
American movies,
creation.
so great.
Yeah.
If it had been 99, we would have picked American movie, but this was 94, so we picked
True.
Crumb.
Man,
Fucking ass, man. I got a MasterCard. Life is pretty cool sometimes.
I had never seen Crumb before this preparation for this conversation. Had never seen Crumb before. It had been in the atmosphere. I had heard about it. I knew it was very well praised. Didn't really know a lot about the film or Crumb himself. Didn't really know that much about it. Kind of just to keep my thoughts rather brief, do you mind if I read a couple of sentences of just my little review? Of
course.
Because I kind of wrote it in a way that is a little bit more concise than probably if I tried to feel my way through it. But I put Zwigoff, the filmmaker, allows the man at the center to speak his mind openly, and in many ways allows the art to speak for itself. And that art has a tremendous power, not only in its objective artistic qualities, but its provocative aspects as well. Frequently, the material is abhorrently racist or sexist. It's often unapologetically pornographic. And Crumb makes no real defense for this, which is fascinating. He simply owns that this is a part of him, and he feels an irresistible compulsion to put it all on the page. And so the filmmaker gets the perspective of both a detractor and a defender of Crumb's art, and both sound soberly thoughtful and sensitive to the potential impact of the work itself. But meanwhile, we have an unadorned window into Crumb's life and his family history. His siblings lead reclusive and often deeply melancholic lives, particularly his brother Charles, who the film reveals succumbs to suicide shortly after his portion was filmed. And then it leaves a distinct impression that Crumb's willingness to put so much of his inner turmoil onto the drawing page may well have saved his sanity, possibly even his life. This doesn't absolve the harmful aspects of the material, but it is worth a pause. And then I'll end with my last little bit. I said, the potency of the documentary is its willingness to avoid judgments. You are under no obligation by the time the film's over to like either Crumb or his art. You are also under no direct obligation to disavow any of it on moral grounds. You are uncomfortably free to make up your own mind. And the brilliance of Crumb the film is its willingness to facilitate that freedom. It presents its subject in as complex and contradictory a way as all of us are in our more truthful assessment of ourselves. So if you can't tell, I thought the film was pretty great. I thought it was really strong. Super impressive as a documentary.
Yeah, that was an awesome review.
Thank you.
I wish I had just let you review it, Reed.
Well, that's kind of you. I appreciate that. But no, I was really taken with it. I was really taken with the film.
I wish I can review movies as intelligently and as artistically.
Oh gosh, that's really kind of you to say. I shared it because rather than rambling through, off the cuff versions, I was like, well, when I sat down and wrote it, that was the freshest experience of it and probably the most concise way I could put it. But yeah, I thought it was powerful. They don't make films. Documentaries are hard to make without slanting the bias. I feel like Zwigoff
100%.
really toes a line here that is admirable because he just throws it out there and
presents it as is.
Yeah.
Lets you decide on it. You're the audience. You're the judge. You're the judge of this man's legacy or history or whatever it wanted to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like his view of the world. And so it's, I don't know. I love it.
Yeah. I'm glad you picked it. Thank you for the excuse to see it.
You're welcome.
A couple of years ago, me and Eric reviewed George Lucas versus the People for it was on May 25th, which is when Star Wars
That's a really good one.
And I feel like that documentary is the same thing. It's not like a love George Lucas kind of thing or hate George Lucas. Like they interview people with different perspectives,
right,
on the matter, and I like that. I got an interesting fact about Crumb. Just to read off on pod, but the movie with Paul Giamatti, American Splendor, where he plays another underground comic book creator,
Harvey Picard.
Harvey Picard. He was friends with Crumb, and the actor that plays Crumb in American Splendor was actually the principal in The Fabelmans.
Didn't know that. Interesting.
I've never
Okay.
seen American
Funny,
Splendor.
Like my
It's
favorite.
good. You'd like it.
Yeah,
American Splendor is good. You should watch
my
it.
favorite movie, that Fableman's in Jurassic Park features an actor that played the guy that did the Porno Cat comic. Like that's hilarious to me.
You should also watch if you're in a Zwigoff phase, you should also watch Ghost World.
Oh,
That's out there in like
Ghost
the
World
tendrils.
Ghost World is really
yeah,
good.
I've
Yeah,
heard about that.
Really good. You should
Yeah,
really watch
that's
Ghost World too.
Yeah, that's
Zwigoff has made like a bunch of weird movies. He made a movie called Louie Bluey, which is another documentary about a jazz musician, and then he made like Bad Santa. So he's like all over the map. But
Art
like Ghost
School
World's really good.
Confidential. I kind of
Art
like
School
that one.
Confidential.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot he made that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
yeah.
have anything you want to say about this documentary, Jackson?
I honestly, I don't think I finished it. I started watching it one night. It was really late, and I fell asleep, and I didn't get to go back to it.
Okay.
It was interesting. What I saw of it was really interesting. I'll have to go back and finish it at some point.
Right. Are we ready to move on to the next movie?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm gonna do my mom's first movie that she wanted to talk about, and that is a little movie starring Anthony Hopkins, Henry Thomas, Adrian Quinn, and Brad Pitt. It's a little movie called Lessons of the Fall.
Oh boy!
And
I will say before we get going, I always confuse this movie with River Runs Through It. In my mind, they're the same movie.
They're very
like,
similar.
They just start. They start just like connecting to me. Continue. Sorry, go.
This was the first time watch for me. Along with a couple of others, and I really enjoyed this movie because it was a surprise to me because I'm thinking, okay, this is a Brad Pitt movie when he was still in this pretty boy phase, and it's a period movie, and there's kind of like a love story kind of going on. So I'm thinking, okay, it's gonna be like a really schmaltzy, like Hallmark, Lifetime kind of girly chick flick kind of movie. I'm like, no, it's anything but. This is a dark movie. Like, there's some jacked up
stuff. Yeah.
Basically, what it is about these three brothers, who father like owns like this land, or he owns like a business or something like that.
He's a rancher, I think. Yeah,
he's a rancher.
Rancher.
Yeah, and then like the one brother played by Henry Thomas goes off to like live his life for a little bit, meets a girl. They come back to the ranch, and they're about to get married. And all three brothers actually go off to fight in World War I, and Henry Thomas dies. And so the whole family is broken up about it. And so Brad Pitt ends up with the fiance for a little while, and then he's just really broken up about his brother's death, and he goes off on a soul-searching adventure. And then so the fiance ends up with the other brother played by Adrian Quinn,
and poor woman.
He becomes a mayor of like a town that's a little distance from this ranch, and it's a crazy movie. Like there's some dark stuff in this movie, like, and it's all about like loss and grief and all that stuff. And surprisingly, Brad Pitt's so good in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
This is really the movie that put him on the map in a big mainstream way. He's been knocking around for a few years, but this is the movie I remember being on. His character being on like magazine covers, and he was like the sexiest man alive because, you know, he comes in and he's got like leather and long hair and like this bear tooth necklace, and he's like riding a horse, and
because Thelma and Louise made him a face.
Yeah,
right.
Legends of the Fall made him a name.
That's
suddenly
the best way to put it. Yeah,
he was out there, but then with Legends of the Fall, he's in.
And of course,
now.
Interview with the Vampire is the same year, but that was him, and that was Tom Cruise too. Tom Cruise is the real. Yeah, he's the one on the poster of that movie. Whereas Legends of the Fall,
he had 7 with really kind of that pretty boy,
and 12 Monkeys too.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Which was like his like rebuke of like the pretty boy thing.
Yeah,
he was like, I got a weird eye, and almost
it's the very anti-attractive kind of part.
Yeah.
And the thing is in this movie, he's not nearly the main character, but he's kind of the theme of the movie wrapped into a character, you know. Even though he's not, I would say Aidan Quinn's character is the protagonist, or maybe Julia Ormond's character is the protagonist.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's her. She's really the main character because she has the most emotional development throughout the movie, juggling all these relationships with these three brothers. But Brad Pitt is the one you really come away thinking about. The movie kind of opens and closes talking about him and the journey he's gone on.
But I like the part where, cause I think after they get back from the war, Brad Pitt is away for a while.
Yeah.
Then Adrian Quinn starts to express feelings towards the fiance. And she's not really into it at this point. And then the next scene, Brad Pitt comes home on a horse. And then
and he's the sexiest man you've ever seen in your entire life.
And then Beyonce's like all googly eyes over Brad Pitt, and then like Adrian Quinn comes in and he's all jealous. And I'm like, dude, it's freaking Brad Pitt. Okay?
Yeah, you don't stand a chance here, dude.
You don't. Who cares if he smells? Like,
I mean, later you do.
You can take a bath. Yeah, it's fine.
Right. Yeah, it's funny.
I had no idea that this movie had like indigenous like themes and stuff.
A big part of it, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that. That was a real big shock too. I thought that was cool. Because that's a really beautiful culture there.
Yeah, it's funny because like this is a film that I think it's kind of okay. Here's my thing on this film. I admire a lot about it and a lot about it. Here's what I think holds me back a little bit is I feel like it is dealing with very earthy things in a very glossy appearance. That's true. That's what disconnects for me is because it's dealing with a lot of very nuanced, complex. I mean, this whole concept that I actually find really compelling about good death that runs through the whole of the film. I feel like that's worth pondering, considering. But then I look at the gorgeous cinematography. You talk about Brad Pitt walking up, riding a horse looking like he's chiseled from marble. Like everything about it seems as if it's really, really beautiful. And there's something that maybe more digestion or maybe a little bit more thought might link up for me. But that's my big disconnect on this film is I feel like it kind of undercuts or undermines its own attempts to explore what it's doing by how it didn't create a contrast for me. It created a contradiction.
It's a movie that needs like a Terrence Malick to direct it.
Yeah,
but it's Edward Zwick instead.
Oh my God, I would watch Terrence Malick's Legends of the Fall now.
Right.
Yes.
It's too glossy. It's too glossy for its own good. It's very 90s glossy where like every sunset has to look beautiful. And it's like cribbing from Terrence Malick's playbook from the 70s. And just like making it
with like
perfectly
Badlands
lit
and stuff.
for the 90s.
Yeah. Badlands and Days of Heaven and stuff like. But oh my God, great call on referencing Malick. Like Malick would take material like this and would really. I mean, Edward Zwick's a great director. Don't get me wrong.
He's for the right movie. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
absolutely. Didn't he do? He did Glory, right? I think
Big Glory.
I think Glory is a great film. So yeah. I mean, there's a ton to really appreciate and really like about this film, and any film that makes someone a big star clearly has done a lot to capture and captivate an audience.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that was the only thing that I just couldn't quite connect with about it. Is I was like, man, I really want to get down with these themes. I think the story's compelling. The film just looks too good, and everybody in it just looks too good. They don't look.
People.
Raw enough.
Yeah.
I think I was just so wrapped up in the story of the movie, and
I can see that.
Just how of a shock I got from how like emotional this movie was, and it wasn't. It didn't feel like it was pulling at your heartstrings or manipulating you too much. Too much. It was like that right.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, it's like that. Is that when you were doing your Rama, you did that one movie, Wide Awake, I think it was called.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
which is very schmaltzy.
Yeah, but it was a good movie.
Rosie O'Donnell, Wide Awake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's the same case here. And Anthony Hopkins, you already know, is
Oh,
phenomenal.
he's the man.
Right.
He's the man.
Yeah, I love Anthony Hopkins so much.
Can elevate almost any movie he's in, even bad ones.
Yeah.
He
agree with
he made a terrible action movie with Chris Rock, and he's still the best part of that movie.
He's interesting when he's on screen. He cannot
Yeah,
help
always
but be
interesting.
interesting. Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
so fascinating as a performer.
Yeah. But anyway, Jackson, all good to you.
All right.
This is your last round one.
Okay. So
End of round one. This is it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to talk about a movie that, like, at the time was a big deal. It was an Oscar contender. It was a big on critics' list, and I feel like it's been almost completely forgotten in today's film landscape, and that is Robert Redford's Quiz Show, which is just one of the most intelligently written. It's beautiful to look at. The ensemble cast is excellent all the way down the line. It gets into some really, really fascinating ethical questions, while at the same time it's a movie about a bunch of people in rooms talking, and yet it's so suspenseful and it's explosively entertaining just because the dialogue is so well written and the characters are so fascinating.
Yeah, no, that scene where they set him up to, like, they set John Turturro up to take the fall, and they set up Ray Fiennes to like take the bait. Like, it's so good.
They're in the booth, and,
that's like
there's
30
little
minutes.
beads of sweat on their forehead. And
yeah, this is a hell of a flick. This is a great flick. Yeah.
This is a movie that, had it been made like 5 years prior, would have just probably won everything. Like, it came out at a time when they were doing things like Pulp Fiction, like we talked about earlier, or a movie that we didn't talk about yet, which was Forrest Gump, which was like pushing boundaries as far as special effects and like the way like tell stories over multiple generations. That this felt like, probably at the time for most people, probably felt a little antiquated, felt like a very safe bet. But it's really good.
It's like a 1970s movie in a lot of ways.
It is.
And that makes sense because Redford came out of that era.
Yeah.
For sure.
And but
it's very classically styled. Oh, go ahead.
Very classically styled. Yeah.
I gotta say, this is a very different role for me with Ralph Fiennes, because I'm so used to him as like Lord Voldemort or Schindler's List. Which I actually found out he lost Best Supporting Actor to Tommy Lee Jones, which kind of sucks because I think
for The Fugitive.
Yeah, but you can't be Tommy Lee Jones
is really
walks
good
into that movie and owns the entire production. And that's
he is so good in The Fugitive.
Every scene he's in.
Man, he steals everything.
Yeah. And then
God, I love that movie.
Like his character in The Menu, Seth Slowick, and then you got Remy. But he's not really like an antagonist. I mean, he's doing something very unethical for sure.
Yeah.
And he's just completely just cool with it.
But this is what makes him compelling. It makes him like super compelling as a protagonist.
Yeah, because you like this guy.
Yeah.
You meet him and he just seems like, I mean, he's this, New England intellectual, whatever, from this big professorial family, but he seems like a really down-to-earth guy.
Yeah, and I like his intro when he keeps coming back to him watching this quiz show.
Yeah, he's just having fun watching a quiz show.
Yeah, and there's this one part where it's right after Totoro answers the question, and like he's like, "How did he get that?
How did he know that?"
Yeah. Well, this is
the way he says it, and the way he kind of chuckles and smiles.
Yeah.
Ralph Fiennes' smile, like
he's very charming when he wants to be.
Oh yeah,
incredibly charming.
Keep going.
Which is very strange coming off of Schindler's List, which he's like,
gosh, that was the very
abhorrent, like
right
terrible
before this movie.
Yes,
he
like
went
the
from
year
that
before
to this one.
He changed his physical appearance a lot between the two roles as well. Like he'd
Sure.
lost a lot of weight to go back to Quiz
Right.
Show and everything. Here's my take on Quiz Show. I mean, solid 5-star flick for me. But here's my take on Quiz Show on why I think it has fallen out of conversation. Is there's nothing individual that you could point to that is like a superlative height. Like there's no performance you could hang on that would be like, oh my God, like that's going to break through culture. But everything about it, literally everything about it works. And I think it's the reason it's such an exceptional film is because there is no weak aspect of this movie. It's paced so tightly.
Yeah,
The
this is
script,
my
as we've already
favorite
said,
movie out of the 3 movies that I watched for the first time.
it's
love this movie.
exceptional. But we were hinting around a lot about the fact like it's classically styled. Robert Redford, came up in old Hollywood, and it was it's styled like a classical piece. And I think that's what's so fascinating about it. But the scene, oh my God, the scene that to me so much of the theme hinges on is when Ray Fiennes' character is trying to explain to his father why he did what he did.
Oh
and
man,
I got to tell you guys, that
Sure.
scene, it had been years since I'd seen this film. I loved it when I saw it.
Yeah.
It had been years since I'd seen it, but that scene had stuck with me in my memory. And that to me, that's like the money on the movie, because when he talks about that, he describes so succinctly how he's like, well, at first they just asked me things that I already knew. Then they gave me the questions and I looked it up. And then eventually that just felt silly. So I just, why not just let them give it to me? And so in this one tight little scene, he describes moral degradation and moral erosion, how it just gets easier to do the wrong thing. And that to me is what is so compelling about this whole film is that scene at the end where the federal investigator is like, I thought we were going to get television. Like you make a really good point, Drew. He's like, Ray Fiennes' character is not a bad dude. We're so sympathetic. Even Stemple, Torturo, who is so fantastic in this film.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
even
it gets all the
Torturo
best lines. Yeah.
Oh,
my
he's so
favorite
great. Yeah, dude. But
so
even
good.
Torturo at the end, when he has come to the proceeding to watch Van Doren crumble, but he can't do it. At the end, when he sees what's happening, he can't do it because even he has recognized, oh God, we're all just getting steamrolled by this thing. And that's that's the line the film leaves us with. He's like, I thought we were going to get television, but television's going to get us. And I'm like, oh my, and you take a film like this. This is why, Jackson, I'm so pleased that you picked this film, because watching it, of course, they're talking television, but of course I'm thinking social media, all of these things, and I'm like,
honestly, if the movie came out today, it would be a bigger deal.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It would be seen as an indictment.
Speaks to reality TV, and just everything is kind of fakey now.
It reminds me.
But apparently, it's always been that way. That's
it's all 100%.
Always been that way. We just know more about it now.
Yeah. Well, the themes in this movie about fake news and perceptions of things that we see in the media. It reminded me of this brilliant line, one of my favorite lines of all time, from The Incredibles 2, that Screenslaver says, the bad guy, he says, "You don't talk, you walk talk shows." And we just get fed this information and we don't think about. We see a favorite celebrity speak about something political, and we just take it for granted. We don't actually think about it. It's like, oh, like I like Brad Pitt. Like I'm gonna agree with 100% what he said. We don't actually think for ourselves. And of course, great that celebrities are politically minded, but we have to think for ourselves. We gotta have our own opinion. That's what makes the world go round.
And that also, I think, plays into sort of the mindset of the producers and directors and people who run these systems that are in place in this movie. It's like the line that the head of NBC tells the I forget his name, the producer of Quiz Show. He's just like, "You're a producer, Dan, produce." He's like, you have to do these things. You have to step in line. Like, there's nothing else. It's very sort of for lack of a better word, it's very like fascism is very Nazi. It's very like you have to do these things. You bought into it. If you want to succeed, if you want to continue to make stuff,
Mm.
you
But
have to
yeah,
do
and
this. You do
it
it.
really
Yeah.
comes down to, and it's capitalism too, because the
Yeah.
reason that this show exists is to sell Geritol. And they have to make the show
Right.
entertaining so people will watch it and they can advertise Geritol to them.
Mhm.
That's the whole reason that they're doing what they're doing. Like,
Played very well by Martin Scorsese, the leader of the Geritol
I love it.
pharmaceuticals.
Queens is not New York. Yeah, I love it.
I had
great
totally
stuff.
forgotten Scorsese was in this. As soon as I saw him, I was like,
Same,
look at
same.
that. Look at that
It's
dude.
honestly the
Look
thing
at
that
him
I
doing
think
it.
of the most when I think of this movie is him going, Queens is not New York, and hanging up the phone.
That's a very
Which when
Scorsese
Scorsese says it, you believe it.
Yeah.
But I will
Scorsese
say,
knows what New York is.
I know this is kind of weird to say this, but I think the whole mentality of these producers and even Fine's character, is very much the mentality that Hitler had or any dictator had. It's like, I'm gonna try to get away with as much as I can.
Right.
But
Sure.
eventually they got caught, and Ray Fiennes in this movie got caught.
Yeah, Ray Fiennes got caught, but NBC got off the hook, and Geritol
Right.
got off the hook. Like all
They
these
got
people
away
who
with
were
it.
like pulling the strings
Yeah.
behind the
Yeah,
behind the
that's
scenes,
pretty much
still
what happened to Hitler. Like,
still out there. Yeah.
his plan was to take over the world, and he only got so far until he got caught.
It's so
He died in a
tragic at the
bunker, but you know.
It's so
Sorry.
tragic at the end when they say that Van Doren never taught again. Like that's tragic because
Mhm.
that's what he really
Yeah.
wanted to do. You know, that's what
For
he
sure.
really wanted to do, and
That's why he
it's-
went on the show
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
to
It's
shine
really,
a light on education. Yeah.
It's really very impactful. I was so thrilled to have an excuse to see this film again, and I wondered if it would hold up to my memory of love, and it did only exponentially
Same.
increased. This is
Same.
a fantastic flick. Fantastic flick.
Yeah, no, I haven't watched this in probably like 20 years.
Hmm.
It's been a long while, and
I like how
a
Turturro's
really good one.
character, going back to him, is similar to Fiennes, where they're both super smart, but they're on different sides of the economic system.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fiennes grew up
Mhm.
rich, but Turturro was more working class, and I like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Well, plus Turturro's character is also Jewish, and at this time,
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
it was a lot harder, to be
Yeah.
Jewish in this
Mm.
country because so much anti-Semitism just running rampant.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I
And that's
love
why
Absolutely.
they replace him with the most Aryan-looking guy.
Right.
They make
They
a
even
whole
bring that
point
up
about that in the movie.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they'll always have a Jewish guy win a bunch, and then he always gets replaced by a Gentile,
Yeah.
as they say,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who makes a lot more money.
who makes
Yeah.
more
and I
money.
like
Yeah.
how Turturro is quizzing his son. I thought that was real interesting. That actually
Yeah.
reminds me of the part in that movie Stand and Deliver where James Almost character is trying to
Mhm.
like teach his son math. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, and I love that movie. I
Hmm.
think Stand and Deliver is a really underrated movie that more people should watch.
Edward James Olmos.
Yeah,
Wonderful in it.
Edward Almost. That was I couldn't get his name
Yeah.
right. You ready to move on to round 2?
Let's do it.
Let's
All
do
right.
it. Let's jump right in.
So my next movie is a little movie by Kevin Smith called Clerks. Now my mom watched this movie.
Try to refrain from quoting this one too much.
Yeah.
Joyce.
Oh,
Yeah.
37.
Oh,
37?
God.
In a row?
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Hey, you get back here. Yeah.
But my mom tried to watch this movie and she freaking hated it.
It
Like,
is not a
she thought-
movie for moms.
Yeah, she thought it
No.
was completely she thought it was misogynistic. She thought it was homophobic, and I don't blame her. There's some things in this movie that are not okay. It was never okay. You have freaking I'm gonna have to censor this as much as possible, but you had a Jade intro where he's talking about going to a party afterward and doing drugs and hooking up with women. He's like, and we're gonna this bitch and this bitch and this bitch. And then he's like, I'll have anything that moves.
Oh gosh.
And then
Okay.
he says to Silent Bob, Silent Bob, you're a rude man, but you're cute too. And he talked about like going down on him, and he's like, ooh. And he called him a homophobic slur. It's like, I'm not gay. I like women. I'm like, oh my God. So
His
wrong.
movie does a lot. So in the sense that when we talked about this a little earlier about Pulp Fiction, and it's willingness to offend in some aspects. This movie does it in a way that is almost just like like going all in on it. They don't. Kevin Smith doesn't care at this point. Like he's just gonna say everything. Yeah.
But here's
because
why
he can.
I picked it. It's because I'm a pop culture nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a pop culture nerd who works for retail. And so I can get this movie on two different levels.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I have other coworkers that I have worked with that are pop culture nerds that I have had similar conversations about Star Wars and Marvel and all this other stuff. I'm also dealing with some dumb customers and some weird customers in my life, in my 4 years working retail thus far. And so I watch this movie and I see stuff like people asking how much is something where it's clearly there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no ice. I gotta drink this coffee hot.
Yeah, that.
Sorry.
I deal with
That's a funny line.
weird customers like the one trying to find the perfect set of eggs that don't break.
Yeah.
That's actually Walt Flanagan, which is one of Kevin Smith's friends.
He's in this movie a few times as different characters.
Yeah. You guys really offended me.
Yeah.
Man.
So she could see her kidneys.
I've used the private contractor Death Star monologue on people before.
Yeah.
And I love that monologue. And then the guy that the roofer comes in, he says,
I love the roofer.
Yeah.
This is one of the best parts of the movie.
And he says, this is one time I got a job and I quit, and it turned out to be Babyface Bobino. Babyface Bobino, the gangster? Yeah. And the guy that ended up doing it got shot.
Yeah.
A contractor listened to his heart, to his head, not his wallet. I just love that. I love the whole cigarette bit where the guy is not
Chuli's gum.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chuli's. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's a representative from Chuli's gum. So
the ending with the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, and the old man.
Oh my gosh. Oh yuck.
Funniest things.
Oh boy.
And I remember seeing that for the first time and laughing my butt off. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm going to hell for laughing at it.
That's so bad.
It's
well, I'm sorry, God, but this is hilarious. This is pure
Listen, man, Kevin Smith grew up Catholic. And let's not forget that Clerks at the end, he acknowledges, he's like, the very first acknowledgement that he gives is to God, without who he couldn't have done it. And I don't think that's a joke. I really don't. I don't think it is either. Knowing Kevin Smith, I think it's very earnest. Well, I don't know him personally, but I mean, just like watching his work, you know. But I will say this. So I was very curious to see Clerks, because when we got this lineup, Crumb was the only film I hadn't seen. Clerks was the only film I didn't like. So I remember kind of liking Legends of the Fall, but I had only half watched Clerks once in college. I kid you not. It was one of those, it's on in the dorm room at the background and everybody's like talking over top of it. Yeah. And I kind of half saw it. I mean, it was there for the whole runtime, but I kind of half saw it because conversations keep interrupting and everything. And my takeaway from this was just like, why in the world do people love this movie? So this time around, because I'm curious by nature, I was very curious to see it again. I've learned a thing or two about film criticism. I've watched another movie or two. I'm older and everything. And I got to tell you, think the movie's pretty brilliant. I think Clerks is pretty brilliant. Here's my take on Clerks. Okay. I'll try to keep this brief, but here's my take on Clerks. The 80s were a time of voracious optimism. everybody's just, it's all excesses. It's all just an overabundance and a glut of everything, of colors, of styles. Don't get me wrong, I love the 80s. God, I love the 80s. But it was just this glut of it. And when the 90s come, everything is listless. Everything is kind of directionless. Everything has got this kind of sheen on it that's like, what are we doing here? What's the point? Or to quote Dante again, I'm not even supposed to be here today. There's this whole existential kind of cloud sitting over the movie of like, what the F are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Why are we doing it? Who are we doing it for? And that, honestly, I got to tell you, that stood out to me this time as like, man, I guarantee you Kevin Smith was not trying to create a time capsule. I think he was just trying to put his thoughts on paper as honestly as he could put them there. We praised earlier, we praised Tarantino's style for dialogue. And while I would still give the award to Tarantino, nipping at his heels is Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith's got a knack for dialogue that is subversive.
Yeah.
It's often vulgar, and I would even agree with what was it. It's often too vulgar, but it would be an error to dismiss it as not clever. It is exceptionally clever, even when the existential underpinnings of it are being disguised as these obscene ramblings. There's also this little undercurrent of insecurities and very real sort of why am I doing what I'm doing? I'm not gonna lie, I've never seen Clerks 2 and 3 because I never liked Clerks 1. After this, I did queue up and put on my pull list to watch Clerks 2 and Clerks 3 because I was just curious. I was like, I liked this movie a whole lot more than I thought I was going to. And so yeah, it was an interesting experience watching this movie again.
Think about this movie, and sort of Pulp Fiction is like this too. It's very much, you get an insight of the writer and director's thoughts about things.
Yeah.
100% dialogue driven. Yeah, 100% dialogue driven.
That Tarantino spent some time in Europe, and the whole
Amsterdam,
about like beer in Amsterdam and like or McDonald's in Paris, like that very much came out of his experience there. And I feel like, and I've listened to his book Tough Shit a couple times, which is really good. I like that. I don't like it as much as disaster artists, because disaster artists generally like had me cracking up. But I digress. But just seeing his experience working at like retail, and so having a friend, I can't remember his name. He's in the movie. I think it's the character Snowball.
Scott Mosier.
Scott Mosier.
Yeah, his
friend with them.
producing partner of many years. Yeah.
He's in the movie. He yells over the balcony to yell down at the customer trying to go in when they're playing up top, and it's him responding to him. Like he is literally responding to himself at one point in the movie.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's Scott Mosier who he worked with at this this Quickie Mart, or this Quick Mart that he worked at. Yeah. And they connected to movies, especially David Lentz. What's his face? The guy that plays Jason Mewes was somebody he knew. I think he knew Walt Flanagan for a while.
Yeah, it's just all his friends, basically.
Friends, yeah.
He made this movie for less than $30,000.
Off of a bunch of credit cards, just
off of credit card debt.
100%. And that is, I think, probably the most selling point of this movie is that it is that go-to DIY spirit of like making a movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He sold the entire comic collection to make this movie.
Yeah, but also like, and listen, I'm not trying to be hoity-toity or anything, but I'll tell you another thing that stood out to me this time around was, I don't know if you're familiar with this play. You don't really have to be to get the point I'm about to make, but there's almost a kind of a Waiting for Godot quality to Clerks, where it's like the owner has skipped town, and you can see this whole film as like a microcosm of, again, like the world in the 90s, where it's like whoever's in charge has bowed out and taken a vacation and didn't tell anybody, and now all of us are struggling to find both the point of why we're trying to continue and the effort to keep continuing. And it was really impressive to me in a way I definitely didn't appreciate half watching it in a room full of people who kept talking through it. But it was great.
Yeah, that's the thing, Reed. I can relate to this movie on a comical level because I dealt with people like this, and I've had conversations about nerdy stuff with my peer groups that I work with.
Of course.
I also relate to it on an emotional level because I remember, because as you know, okay, I'm not gonna get there. I'm not gonna get into my personal life at work, but retail sucks, everybody.
It does. It does.
Oh, I know. I worked it for many years. Yep.
So I remember I started watching this movie after Lessons in the Fall to kind of go to sleep to, and the movie opens on Dante getting ready for work the day that he had off, and it plays that one song. I can't remember what it's called, but the main like hook of it is "I'm living day to day," and the scene is Dante just throws his head on the counter and he's just exhausted about his life. And where he's at. And I'm like, I feel you, Dante. And I don't know. I feel like I'm in a point in my life now where I'm starting to get a little bit more control. Like I'm doing this awesome podcast with you guys where I talk about movies, something I love to do. And hopefully one day I can get big enough on it, I can grow big enough on it where it can actually sustain me and I can support myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's a hope, at least.
Yeah. So it really affected me on both of those levels, and I think that's why one of my favorite comedies up there was like Young Frankenstein and Ferris Bueller and Ghostbusters. Yeah. I can relate to it on the comedy level and an emotional level too.
I will say, Reed, I can't really speak about Clerks 3 because I don't even think I've seen it. Maybe I've seen
Clerks 3. I've seen Clerks 3.
Clerks
it is
2,
you could skip it.
So
you could skip Clerks
2 both doubles down on the crassness and the vulgarity, but it also doubles down on the emotional wallop.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
The ending of that movie is incredibly poignant.
Really? All right.
Oh yeah.
All right. All right.
So definitely that one's worth
Clerks 2 is Clerks 2 is good. Clerks 3 is not.
And
I'm definitely gonna check it out.
It's an underrated soundtrack too, because you got like a punk rock version of "Go Your Own Way." You got that Chewbacca song.
Chewbacca song was in Chewbacca song was in this one too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna
the
quote.
First one had an underrated soundtrack.
Yeah.
But
Berserker,
Berserker.
Oh my god, that guy was so funny.
Berserker.
Come on, Berserker.
I'm not. I know we need to move on. I'm not going to quote his entire line for just I didn't write it down. But Kevin Smith's kind of his character, Silent Bob. He comes in and drops this note, which is essentially like, yeah, not every girl is going to bring you lasagna for lunch.
Yeah,
and that is such a great just hey man. Get your head out of your backside. Like, there's lots of people who do lots of things. Not everybody's going to bring you lasagna for lunch. And I'm just like, man. And again, I was a little put on my heels because all I remembered about this film and all I thought it was admired for was its vulgarity, which was a lot. Not defending it. It was a lot. But there's more to this movie than I expected there to be, remembered there being, and I was happy to be impressed and to be wrong in my initial assessment. I was appreciative of getting to see this movie.
I do want to mention one more thing. A passage in Kevin's book that really gets to me now, and he talks about working in the movie industry as a film lover, and he compares it to you're going to buy some milk, and then some guy comes down who owns a milk factory, and he's like, hey, you want to own this milk factory? And he's like, yeah, sure. 10 years later, you just think to yourself, you're just going to go get some milk. And your whole life is milk, is making milk.
Yeah.
And that's how my life feels now, is I just love horror movies. And I'm not doing this full time now, but it feels like a good part of my life is horror movies and analyzing movies. And I was just a film lover.
Well, I mean,
That's
in the
awesome.
sense that like Kevin Smith is, he made his own way and taking steps towards
Mm,
making his dream a reality. You are doing the same. So
yeah.
Yeah.
congrats to that.
Amen. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You ready for your next one, Lackey?
Yeah, sure. I'll try not to wax too poetic about it, about what I consider to be one of the great, and this is not hyperbole. It's one of the greatest films ever made. I mean, it was painfully underlooked
Mhm.
in '94. A lot of people were like, "What is this weird title? It's a really strange like what is this film?" But The Shawshank Redemption
Yeah.
has sat
Got the
on
shirt.
I love that shirt. Oh my god. I mean, you talk about a wallop of a film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't believe Stephen King wrote it.
Mm,
And to be honest with you, if you read the novella from different seasons, Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption,
Hmm.
you'd never believe that a movie like this could come out of it. Frank
Right.
Darabont is a genius of adaptation. He made many changes to the film from the original source material, included, I don't know if you guys know this, so like that entire interlude with Brooks in the middle, uh, part of the thematic anchor of the film,
Hmm.
nowhere to be found in the story.
Oh
Nowhere to
yeah,
be
it's
found in
not
the
in the.
story.
It's been a long
No.
time. I've read
That's
it, but it's
wild.
been a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's so many things. Darabont just understood what this film needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
You get cinematography by Roger Deakins. Holy cow.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
way he can and it's movie magic, the
mhm.
way that he can
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
construct a shot. It has got we talked about how quiz show is classically styled storytelling. This is as well, but with a bit more of a populist frame and a bit
Mm,
more of that
Yeah.
superlative sort of rhythm that we're talking about where things
Hmm.
go way heavy, way deep. Oh my God, when
Mm-hmm.
I just watched it, but the guy who gets killed for knowing that Andy Dufresne is really
Oh,
Oh
innocent
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Johnny or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Oh
Tommy.
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Tommy
Tommy,
or
Tommy,
Tommy?
it's Tommy.
Tommy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just after having gotten his degree and everything, and just like the film takes you on one of the most, arguably one of the most satisfying emotional rides
Mm,
of any film
Hmm.
I have ever seen.
mm,
It will put you
Hmm.
through the paces, it will bring you low, and then at the end, and this is a feat. This is a mother effing feat. By the end, the emotional, like happy ending
Uh-huh.
is fully earned. It
Oh
is
yeah.
Yeah.
earned.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
line in the film is he said he crawled through this river of crap and came out squeaky clean on the other side. This film does that. Like it puts you
Hmm.
through so much hardship and so much turmoil. And then at the
Yeah.
end, it brings you right back. Like that final sequence where Red is making his way to the Pacific to join with Andy, and then
Mm.
that beautiful Thomas Newman score as they scale back,
Hmm.
and you just see like two dots in the distance, these old friends come together in a hug. It's beautiful. It's an amazing, amazing film. Justice is served, and it's just
Yep.
and redemption is found. And okay, so and I promise I'm going to stop and let other people talk. Like, but I will say this, like the other thing that I really appreciate about the film, it's not necessary. I'm just glad a film like this exists in this way. There are
Hmm.
so few films that dig down on long-term friendship. So few.
Hmm.
There are plenty of films that talk about like groups of friends, and there are
Mm-hmm.
plenty of films that talk about up and down relationship with friends,
Mm-hmm.
romantic kindling and whatever. But there are so few films I can think of that drill down on two people who just lived their lives together and
Hmm.
are friends, and that friendship is meaningful to them. This is I mean, The Shawshank Redemption is an amazing movie for a variety of reasons I haven't even touched on. But I'm going to shut up now because
yeah.
be the next hour talking about Shawshank Redemption.
It's a movie that I've seen so many times on TNT as a child.
Yes.
I feel like TNT ran this movie
I mean, that's
like
why it's so
every
popular
day.
to this
Yeah.
day, is because they
Mhm.
ran it on a loop for like 12 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that was my first experience with it, was
Right.
like
A
watching
lot
it
of
on
people,
TV.
same.
And it's a movie that it's kind of amazing that it even got made because it's such a
Oh, yeah.
weird subject matter. It's
Mhm.
it's probably a popular author. So Stephen King went been making stuff all through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but just like a movie about a guy in prison for like the majority of the runtime wasn't
Yeah.
really something really that was made. I mean, I guess they made like what was that movie
Alcatraz.
Escape from Alcatraz? Yeah, that Clint Eastwood
Yeah.
did in like the 80s, but
Or
like
Quinn and
there
Luke.
isn't a whole lot of prison movies out there.
Mhm.
Quinn and
Or
Luke.
especially ones that are like Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah.
Right.
What we got
There's
here.
also
Hey, you're
yeah,
communicate.
right. But like and just to resonate on this sort of level that this movie does is kind of amazing. Like
Yeah.
it on its surface is very simple. It's about a man wrongfully imprisoned. We don't necessarily know if he's wrongfully imprisoned, which I think is like purposeful in
Yeah.
storytelling.
Mhm.
Um, but it's deceptively simple that opens up a lot of truths about like humanity and like
Right.
perseverance and survival, and the willingness to like live. Which man, it's good. It's really good.
Get busy living or get busy
Yeah,
dying.
Right.
right.
Man.
Yeah.
This movie is
Man, oh
one of my
man.
favorite tagline of all time, which is fear holds you prison, hope sets you free.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that had religious implications if
Mhm.
you have that mindset, and it doesn't if you don't.
That's
Yeah.
Stephen King for you. Like so much
Yeah.
of
Oh
his
yeah.
work
Yeah.
is
Oh yeah.
just
Yeah.
soaked in that sort of
Yeah.
subject
I
matter.
want to talk about the warden.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Bob
Top
Gunton.
movie
Yeah.
villain for me. This guy's an absolute piece of shit. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, I don't want to completely bash religion. I think it brings a lot of people comfort, but this is the one aspect of religion that makes me absolutely sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is when
True.
you use the word of God, specifically in this case,
Yeah.
to justify terrible things
Yeah.
such as lying, cheating people financially, and murder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you hide behind your holy book that you
Yeah.
take all your morals towards. I think
Yeah.
that is one of the most disgusting things you can do as a human being, in my opinion.
Oh sure. Of course.
And then in the end, like Andy uses that same book
Oh yes.
as a means of concealing his escape tool.
Salvation lies within.
Within.
Like
Yeah.
It's
that-
so
And here's
so
the
perfect.
thing, and again, I
Chef's
just want
kiss.
to
It
reiterate,
is
It's
so
perfect.
good.
if you're religious, I don't hate religion. If you believe in the Bible, that's completely fine. Just don't be a dick about it, honestly. Like
Right.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Agreed.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
and
that's also that character specifically is another one of the great adaptation that Frank Darabont brings to this material, because that character in
Yeah.
the book is like 4 or 5 different characters.
yes, multiple
It's a
wardens over
series
time.
of wardens, and Frank
Yes.
Darabont's like, no, let's make this all one guy.
Unifies
Give this movie
it.
a proper villain, and
Yeah.
of course cast Bob Gunton in one of his best roles.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I would
Yeah.
categorize villains into 3 categories. There's the sympathetic villain. There's the villain that you can kind of understand where they're coming from, and then there's the villain that you absolutely hate. And
Yeah.
those 3 aspects always, can always bleed into each other.
Of course.
Bob Gunton is the villain that when you see him
It's one of the
the
most
first
despicable.
time, and you've seen the movie before, and you know what this guy is capable of, you want to freaking strangle this guy. Because you know this guy is a complete fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And
There's a real short list of those characters in cinema. He's one.
Mhm.
Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List is one.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
One of the later editions, I think, was last year's High Evolutionary from Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Mm.
John
He's
Kreese,
definitely on that list now.
is another one for me.
Yeah.
Man.
So,
Man.
Miss Carmody from The Mist, another Stephen King
Oh.
adaptation. High on the list for
Yeah.
me.
It's true.
Yeah.
Stephen King acts in very his characters have wide ranges, but he definitely
Yeah.
loves him an extreme villain, a
yeah.
villain that is gonna just
The
go
most
for it
evil.
to the
Yep.
nines.
What's
Oh
the
yeah.
character from oh shoot, from the Dead Zone, the politician? And the
Yeah,
first time you
Stillwell.
meet him,
Greg
he kicks a
Stillwell.
dog
Yeah.
to death.
Oh
I'm
man.
actually
Yeah.
gonna
In
question
his
real quick,
introduction to
Reed.
the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, so since you're the Stephen King expert,
Oh,
between
nah.
all four of us, I know he has a reputation, and again, he had more my mindset about religion, where he didn't hate it, he just
Mhm.
doesn't like the extreme version of it, and he has a
Yeah.
reputation of having characters that are extremely religious, and they do terrible things. So
Yeah,
Miss
absolutely.
White, Miss Comedy, and then the Warden. Really, the
Yeah.
only time where he paints a religious character in a positive light is Mother Abigail from The Stand. Is there any
Yeah.
other characters like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's
There's lots.
yeah. There are multiple characters.
Father
There's actually
Callahan from
yeah.
Salem's Lot, and then
Oh, I
later in
forgot about that. I
the
just read
Dark
that.
Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's plenty. There's actually I forget the kid's name, but the kid from Desperation is
Oh yeah.
not only devoutly religious, but like his faith is like affirmed in a couple of life-saving situations
wow.
where he prays and then gets out of them. Yeah. King's fascinating in that regard because I actually really appreciate his approach to the subject because it's very human. It's very character centric. I will say this. In years past, when I would read Stephen King, I would doubt that there were Miss Carmodys in the world, that there were, the Wardens of the world.
Sure.
As I have gotten older and seen some things, I'm like, actually, they exist. They're
Yeah, they're
around.
out there.
Yeah.
They're out
Yeah.
there. To my dismay, but just to answer your question, but yeah, like King has many characters who are either sympathetic to religion specifically, or at the very least sympathetic to faith and sympathetic to hope. King himself has said on multiple interviews, mostly as a process of his sobriety, chooses to believe in God, has a deep mistrust of so many things that organized religion has, but he himself is not averse at all to concepts of faith, and he often writes characters sympathetic to the same.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually went to the prison where this movie was shot.
Really?
And one of the first kind of things that I was kind of cool to me was walking up that entrance, that little path. And the thing about what you're talking about, that shot that Robert Deacon does when he goes over the prison, that helicopter shot,
Yeah, beautiful. All the aerial shots in this movie,
yeah,
like
and
the
then,
opera scene where it just all the men are standing and they turn.
Yeah, and then I go upstairs and I see Andy Dufresne's desk, and I'm like, oh my god, one of my favorite actors of all time, Tim Robbins, sat at that desk.
Yeah,
pretty cool. It's cool.
My top 3 favorite movies of all time. That's crazy to me.
This is
We've
going to
had
be
this entire talk without even mentioning Morgan Freeman, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
One of the biggest keys to the movie success. This is the movie
Jackson.
that started the Morgan Freeman must narrate everything.
Yes, it did.
Trend,
And this is Red's story. It's Red.
Oh, he is.
Like Andy Dufresne is
he's the framework for the entire movie.
Absolutely. He's the character who goes through the most change. He's the one that is the most meaningful to us when it's all done. I love that little Brooks was here, so was Red. Oh my God. It's just like, man, it's one. Thank you, Jackson. I'm so glad you brought up Morgan Freeman, because he's brilliant in this. Absolutely brilliant in this film. Love it so much. And the character in the book is actually Irish, redheaded, ginger Irish.
And then they turn it into a joke in this movie. I love that.
Yeah. It was
great. I'm Irish.
It's good.
It's fantastic.
Is Morgan Freeman. Yes, Mr. Wayne. Captain Black.
So yeah,
Um,
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank.
yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely
Can't say
go to
enough good
prison
things.
if you're in the whole Ohio area or you're planning to take a trip. Definitely go to Ohio because it's a pretty cool state. Me and my dad went there a few years ago, and we had a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, plus the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there too. So,
Cedar Point,
Okay.
the biggest concentration of roller coasters in the U.S.
oh really?
Hey.
That's cool. So if you got nothing else to talk about with the Shawshank Redemption, let's go to Eric. What's your number two?
I mean, we could literally talk about Shawshank
Okay.
It could
Redemption for
be
the next 3
just a
hours,
whole
probably.
Shawshank
Yeah.
Redemption
Yeah.
podcast.
Agreed.
And many
Agreed.
people
Yeah,
have
so-
done that. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
there's no shortage
It's
of
endless.
material out
Endless.
there about
Overstudied.
Yeah, I want to shout out me and Eric's top 5 Stephen King movie video that we or episode that we did a while back.
I mean, yeah, it's got to be on your list. It's
Side
just
note,
I think
indelible.
I know that my co-host on Fear of God, Nathan, teases me and jokes about this, but when I do this, but multiple times met Frank Darabont. He's a very sweet man. Was to me anyway. So yes, he was.
He seems like it just in general.
He was a cool
as well,
dude. Yeah,
I wish he
really
was
cool
still
dude.
working. He hasn't done anything in so long.
He
Yeah,
hasn't
he's
really done
softly
anything.
retired.
I mean,
Yeah,
the
he's
Yeah.
majority
softly
of his
retired.
catalog is Stephen King.
I know, but he was so good at it.
He was.
Just
Right.
keep
Very
making
good at
Stephen
it. Green
King
Mile.
movies.
Yeah.
I like Mike
Even
Flanagan.
The Walking Dead, the first season of Walking Dead is pretty good.
Here's the
so.
thing about Darabont, and then we do need to move on. But here's the thing about Darabont. Darabont has done a ton of work he never received credit for. He
It's
did
true. He was a
he did
script
it.
doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a script
Yeah.
doctor for years and years and years. That was a
Yeah.
big facet of his career. He
Mhm.
script doctored tons of stuff that Steven Spielberg wound up directing that he didn't get credit for. Some of that was intentional, like, hey, just pay me to
Right.
script doctor it and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
some of
Sure.
it was, some more contentious aspects or whatever. But yeah, he's done a ton of work for things that he never received credit for.
Yeah.
And I also think that Mike Flanagan is kind of taking that Stephen King mantle from Darabont because he has 2 awesome adaptations.
He
Oh, I agree.
does. I would like to see
Yeah,
more.
Gerald's
Yeah.
Game.
Yeah.
Give him the Dark Tower. Come on.
Yeah, well,
He's
Oh.
working on it. He's
well,
working on it.
Actually,
Is
is he
he
really?
actually?
Oh, that's good.
I don't know if
That's
it's a
exciting.
substantiated rumor or if it's just a rumor, but I have heard that Flanagan is working on the Dark Tower for
Anything to erase that
That's
terrible
exciting.
movie from a few years
Mhm.
The
ago.
Matthew McConaughey, Idris
Oh,
Elba. Yeah.
gosh. So
Ooh.
bad. Okay.
well,
90
Gerald's
minutes.
Game's the only Stephen King adaptation where I think the movie is significantly way better than the book. I
I would say that about Shawshank Redemption as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would too. And I
it's-
love Stephen King.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's a good
they're
book,
pretty
but it's a
neck and
great
neck.
movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty neck and neck. I'm talking like significantly. It's way, way better
Okay.
than Gerald's Game. Eric, you go.
I'm up. Okay, so second movie. And I realized earlier today when I was thinking about these 2 movies that I both picked movies about artists who are kind of misunderstood at the time, for better or worse. And so
Well, it's because I gave
now
you
I
this
feel like
one because I wanted to talk
Right.
about a different one. I wanted to talk about
Right.
Quiz Show. So
so I really felt like this movie is a movie that I didn't watch at the time. I didn't see it in '94 when it came out. I mean, I also didn't see Crumb in '94 when it came out, but it's a movie that's really like resonated with me later, like working in like television and things like that. Of just sort of like a found family too. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about Ed Wood. If anybody hasn't, if I haven't said anything, and so
Man,
it
love it.
it's a movie that on its surface, I can't substantiate that any of these things actually like happened in the way they happened in the movie. I'm almost positive they didn't.
there's no way. Yeah.
There's no way, but narratively, I think it's perfect for the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Which essentially is about Ed Wood, who in 1980 was declared the worst director ever. Long, like 2 years after his death. But he made a lot of like low budget sort of, some would call it schlock, some would call it like trash cinema. But there was always an affection in it. And so like people were appreciating it even after his death. And so it's not good movies. They're not good movies. Like Plan 9 from Outer Space is probably maybe
Oh
one of the
no,
worst movies ever made. Um, but just the zeal and like I think this is what this movie captures is just that zeal for like wanting to make, wanting to create, which also kind of goes back to Crumb in some ways, and is that you
Mhm.
have to do this in order to fulfill yourself, fulfill your ambitions, fulfill like purpose. You need to make something.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think Ed Wood is about that, and then it's also about friendship, which also goes back to Shawshank Redemption. It is about like the friendship of like two people who in Ed Wood is about like the diametric sort of like the ideals of like youth and fame almost, um where like Eddie uh like idolizes Bella because he's so prolific, but then Bella in some ways just idolizes Eddie because he's so young and
Yeah.
fruitful, and he feels this deal coming from him. He feels this sort of like life coming out of him. I don't know. I love this movie just in their scenes.
Yeah.
It really highlights maybe like three movies that Ed Wood made. He made like a lot of movies. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was
Yeah.
a lot in that time period. I've only seen, and honestly, I've only ever seen these actual three movies. Glenn and Glenda, Bride of the Atom, which was Bride of the Monster, I think, and then
Mhm.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Mm.
They're all not great movies by any stretch of the
They're not.
imagination. They're not.
Yeah.
But the way this movie frames it, in the sense that it is something, and I think it's relatable to all of us, and it's just the same way with like Shawshank, in that we're all looking for purpose, and I think when you find it, you feel alive.
Mm.
And I feel like this movie really makes people like really makes people. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I feel like I was building towards a real good point, but I do think this is like an inspirational movie in some ways,
In
where it
a
is.
lot of ways.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Yeah.
its
In a
yeah.
own
lot of ways.
very
Where
like
it is sort
slanted
of like
way. Yeah.
building toward, yeah, it's building towards like the found family, building towards this sort of idea of like making your own future when people don't believe in you,
Mm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
going out and
Mhm.
doing it yourself and raising the money yourself, which is
Right.
something Dolores says. But
Yeah.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
I
And this
I
whole- oh,
still Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
yeah. I'd like to go ahead. Yeah, Reed.
Oh, so,
Yeah.
I think Ed Wood is Tim Burton's best film. I think it's
Yeah.
his greatest film.
Absolutely agree.
And I'm
Yeah.
saying this as a lover of Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice being one of my like 20 favorite films of all time. Like I love Beetlejuice for personal reasons. I think
Oh, he said
Beetlejuice
3 times, Lackey.
it's a burst of creative energy, but Ed Wood is brilliant. And I'll tell you what I was picking up on. I don't know if this is the exact point you were trying to make, Eric, but what I was picking up on
Mhm.
is there's this undercurrent to art and artistic expression that it's like,
Mhm.
well, it has to be good, right? Like if you're gonna do it, then it should actually be good. What I
Right.
love about drilling down on Ed Wood the way that Tim Burton does is he's like, screw whether or not it has to be good. You want to do it.
Do it.
Right.
Like who cares if nobody else thinks it's good? Like, yeah, there's a certain quality that if you really want to do something great, then yeah, there's this real tension of like, well, you want it to have an audience and you want people to
Of
enjoy it.
course.
But what I love about Ed Wood is it made it that like, well, no, the gift is you got to do it. The gift is like this was
Mhm.
in you to do, and you actually got to do it.
Mm.
Like
Sure.
that's that whole centerpiece of him in the diner with Orson Welles.
Orson Welles.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
wonderful turn from Vincent D'Onofrio, who's wonderful and
yeah.
everything. But it's like,
Well,
it's like,
with assist from Maurice LaMarche doing
oh,
the
that's
voice.
true. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Good old
But
brain.
I think that's the other piece of the puzzle that's so I feel like if people don't if they aren't great at it, like if they're not the top of the field, they feel
Mhm.
like, oh well, I shouldn't even do it because I'm not
Right.
great at it. And why I so much love this film is it's like, no, stop that. Screw it. You don't have to be great at it. You don't even have to be good at it. If you want to do it, just
Go do it.
it. And
Right.
to your point, Eric, it's like you find family in it, you find community in it, you find satisfaction in the fact, look, I made a thing. Oh,
Yeah.
worst film you ever saw, huh? Well, my next one will be better.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
100%. 100%.
you know,
And it's
it's
another
just
personal movie to me because it's going back to the whole thing where like I'm doing this podcast for you guys. Like we're building a community.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
talking about
Of
movies.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
one
also, I
thing-
mean, it ties back into like Clerks too, in
Yeah.
the sense that like go and do it. No one's going to give you the money to do
Yeah, he
these
just
things.
rounded
You
up
have
his
to find
friends
your own
and
way.
maxed out a bunch of
Yeah.
credit cards, and
Yeah. Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
out better for him than it did for Ed Wood. But
Yeah, and I
Right.
love
True.
Well, I mean, in the long run, maybe it would maybe more prolific by the end of it. Who knows?
Here is what I will say about that point, to your point, Jackson.
Mm.
There's a real debate about like, oh yeah, the worst film you ever saw or whatever, stuff like that. I bet you there are not very many people who could name directors from the 30s, like directors of films that they could
Yeah.
name, directors like,
Yeah.
just
you
those
know,
nerdy types.
yeah, those of us who are
Right.
who are more tapped into film criticism might be able to conjure a few names, but so many people have heard of Ed Wood.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
so many people
Well, I
know
think
of his
this
films.
movie helps.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
It
But even
perpetuates
the,
his myth.
even
If you
the,
look at
you know, Plan
Ed
9's
Wood's life
reputation.
story, it's quite sad.
Mm.
It is. It's pretty
After
tragic,
the
as
50s,
is Bella's, you know.
Bella's, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But my
I-
favorite part of this. Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, just one more comment because we mentioned Bela Lugosi. I love that when Martin Landau won the Oscar for this, I forget if he said this or if commentators at the time said this, but when Martin Landau won the Oscar, they said the Oscar goes to Martin Landau. Its shadow goes to Bela Lugosi, which I thought was beautiful.
Mm.
I was like, that's
Mm.
lovely. You know,
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
what I love about this movie. And this is my second time watching this for this episode, and
Mm-hmm.
I forgot how sad it was.
that's a very sad movie.
He was
Yeah.
So
freaking
sad. So sad.
Dracula. He was in White Zombie, and he
Mm-hmm.
had an accent. People wouldn't hire him. And it's really sad. The thing I wanted to say was I just love how much of an exhibitionist Ed Wood is in this movie, where he's at this big wig like studio head guy, and he's pissing all these movies just by the title is like The Vampire's Tomb,
Yeah.
Dr. Acula.
Dr. Acula.
Acula. Get
To
it?
me,
Dr.
feels
Acula.
like the whole like what Sean S. Cunningham did with Friday the 13th. He didn't even have a story. He just thought, oh, I saw Halloween, that was a big deal.
And came up with the poster first.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sold it off of a fake poster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and there's a real, you know, there's a real argument to be made. There's a real case to be made where it's just like, you know what? There's a lot of brilliant filmmakers out there that when you hear about their personal lives or whatever, they're monstrous to the people around them, and they resort to monstrous tactics to get those things done. Whereas Ed Wood is seeing some random, you know, archive footage, and he's like, "Oh, I can make a film out of this." You know, what's
Yeah.
going
Mhm.
on in the plains? We don't know, but it's scaring the buffalo. You know, like it's just,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like he just receives everything. I did want to toss this out because I wanted to look it up. I couldn't remember what he said, but Orson Welles says in there, and this I think is the heart of the film. And my God, put this everywhere. It says, "Visions are worth fighting for. Why
Yeah.
spend your life making someone else's dreams?" And I'm just
Mm.
like, man, that's that to me is the heart of the
Yeah.
film. Like, be you,
Yeah.
do what you do what you have in your heart and spirit to do, and
Mhm.
don't wait for permission for some, you know, powers that be to say, oh, you are justified in doing it. No, just, you know, don't live your life, you know, building somebody else's dreams. Make yours. That's beautiful. I think that's amazing, you know.
I want to talk
yeah.
about
Wonderful.
that part in this whole movie, and I've watched this scene so many times on YouTube. It's the part when they're about to film Glinda or Glinda with Lugosi,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
the fan comes up to him and he's like, "Lugosi, can I get your autograph?" And he did the autograph, and he says, "I really liked you in The Invisible Way as Boris Karloff's psychic," and then he just goes, "Karloff? Psychic? Oh, Joe!"
He's so triggered by Boris Karloff the whole movie. So great.
Landau is so brilliant in this film.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we talked about how like very kind of like sad it is or how inspirational it is, but also it's a very funny movie when it comes down to it.
Hilarious. Johnny
Yeah.
Depp is he's just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah,
in
and
this
this was
movie.
when Johnny Depp was freaking amazing.
This is back, this was his heyday. Yeah.
This was
I feel like-
before Pirates made him a movie star. He was
Right.
he was like the darling of quirky, independent
Right.
characters that people
Yeah, he was
loved
always
to
a
see
leading
stuff.
man, but just
Mhm.
the offbeat leading man that we
Right.
do
Yeah.
like
Oh, a little
Benny
bit
and
of
June
Disney.
and Edward Scissorhands. and stuff
Scissorhands,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, like I said, you
Yeah.
saw a little bit of that Disney money. I honestly think the last really great Tim Burton Johnny Depp movie collaboration was Sweeney Todd. I think Sweeney Todd is great.
Sweeney Todd's pretty solid, but that's working
Sweeney Todd's
from
solid,
really
yeah.
good source material.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. You ready to move on?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Edward, done.
Yep. My mom's next movie is a little movie called Forrest Gump.
Oh, such
I haven't
a
heard of this
humble
one. Which one is this? Yeah, what is this?
Well, this is a movie.
little art house movie.
He
Yeah.
plays a mentally challenged person, and a lot of grandmas really like it. A lot of moms really like it. But no,
Interesting.
Forrest Gump is great, man. Forrest Gump. It's not in my top 30 favorite movies, but it's pretty much up there. It's close. This movie's just
I had
so
a-
charming, and I just
Yeah.
love Forrest Gump's outlook on the world. When he's in college and he sees that black girl who's getting picked on and getting belittled, and then he drops her notebook. Like he didn't like see her as evil. He just picks up the notebook for her, and it's beautiful.
Sure.
Um,
Well, full heart, so Forrest Gump, even though he may be whatever superlative you want to give to him as far as
Yeah.
like being
Yeah.
less than,
yeah, and
but
the other thing
but
is,
he always pure of heart,
yeah,
and so
Yeah.
I think that's what carries through in a lot of it.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is, like, he goes to fight in Vietnam, has no idea that there's a political vibe with that. And then when he's, in Washington and he's, with that one person that's protesting or talking about how bad Vietnam was, he didn't know who that guy is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No. Vietnam.
I think time has not been, and this is not a ding against the film. I think this is an interesting thing to watch in culture. I think time has not been kind to Forrest Gump, and I
Oh,
think
100%.
the reason it has not been kind to it is because people, I think, are picking out some of its eccentricities, its dubious approach to history. Like, oh, sure, one man is
Mhm.
responsible for all these titanic things. I've seen it be derided pretty heavily for its like heavily pro-capitalism kind of stuff because he builds this empire, the shrimp
Sure.
company and everything. And so there's all of those things. And to me, this is just my opinion, so worth what anybody else paid for it. Is functionally speaking, I feel like that largely misses a good deal of the point of the film, which is the durability of innocence, the fact that there is a certain inspiration in the simpler ways of things and the simpler ways to approach people and relationships. I think you talked about just the endless heart, Eric. I mean, look, that scene where Forrest sees his son and Jenny tells him that's your son.
Pretty hard to beat.
But the scene, like, Hanks is a brilliant man. Real controversial take here. Tom Hanks is a brilliant actor.
The pro tip, Reed, don't piss his wife.
Oh, that's a good point. I saw that video. But I think the moment when he sees his son and then he has this real restraint of like, is he smart or is he, and he can't even finish the words, is he like me? He can't even finish the sentence.
Yeah.
It's really powerful and it's really potent. And I will not defend, because I think the conversations are important. I will not defend that. Yeah, there's a lot of dubious history rolled out in this, and there's some problematic associations that come there. That's certainly all worth consideration.
Mm.
But my overriding quality whenever I walk away from this film is just like, man, there is a place for innocence in this world. There is a place for simplicity in this world. There is a winning quality to an approach that is not polluted by all of the crap we try to bring to it. And that's one of my big takeaways when I walk away from the film. Is that an overly optimistic view of the film? Sure, maybe, but I don't force that perspective on the film. The film gives that to me, and I simply choose to. That's my take on Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Well, I think the part when he reacts to his son, or when he finds out that's his son, I think that is the best acting I've ever seen Tom Hanks give.
Absolutely, he's brilliant.
Like, he just is in a different movie at that point. It feels.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Eric?
Oh, I was just going to say that a friend of mine would argue this day and night is that Forrest Gump essentially changed like the type of movies that Hollywood made from here on out. Like they were basically making this same movie up until like Benjamin Button. Like Benjamin Button's almost the same exact movie.
Same screenwriter.
Right, yeah. And so it is just this sort of like historical epic that takes place over multiple decades that involves like one person falling through time and like interacting with all these characters.
I mean,
to better or worse degrees, like
half of Interview with the Vampire is kind of like that, because it kind of goes through all the different decades and discovering stuff.
But I mean,
tuned for October.
Oh yeah, I thought we're actually reviewing Interview with the Vampire. For our Halloween series of horror movie reviews. So
that's awesome.
Jeez.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything, Jackson, about this movie?
I mean, okay, being the only person from Alabama in this room,
unfortunately,
it's one of those things where, like, I've had people say, "Oh, you sound like Forrest Gump when you talk," or whatever.
Wow,
that's kind of annoying. I don't know. Okay, I have kind of a love-hate relationship because, yes, Reed, I see what you mean, and I find this movie very entertaining, very engaging. I love the characters in it. I love the sweeping nature of it. But yeah, I do have that twinge of like, oh, it's kind of a movie about conformity.
Yeah.
I mean, because Forrest, he doesn't know any better. So he just goes along with what everybody tells him to do. Nothing is his idea. He's just this simple man, and he's very sweet and very lovable. And yet Jenny, who pursues her own path throughout the movie, that would be a fascinating movie to see, is this movie from her point of view. Except it would just be so depressing because
it would be very sad.
Everything she does, she gets punished for it.
Yeah. So fun fact regarding Jenny, there's a quick shot where there's a Rosemary's Baby poster in the background. That's actually an original poster that they used.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
But yeah, so it's one of those movies like I kind of have to hold it in both hands.
Sure.
It's not my favorite. I think of all the movies we've discussed tonight, it's towards the bottom of this list for me personally.
Sure.
But I'm not gonna poo-poo it if somebody really loves it. It's got a great soundtrack, but it's all the most obvious songs.
Yeah,
from any of the eras.
This was also felt like the movie that popularized that sort of like cherry picking those best little bits.
Yeah,
it did.
This is the greatest.
It was like a double CD soundtrack. Yeah.
This is the greatest boomer movie ever made. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Now, just real quick, I do want to ask a question on my mom's behalf, because my mom does not like Jenny. She loves this movie, obviously, because it's one of her picks. Does not like Jenny, thinks she's a terrible person, and I kind of see where she's coming from. I want to go around the room. How are we feeling about Jenny? Like, what do you guys feel about her?
I mean, I'll dive on the sword. Like, I think she's a tragic character. I feel like the film frequently uses her as a foil in some ways that I think are problematic through today's lens. I
Yep.
think as a character, she is the embodiment of something that's not an actual character
Right.
with actual will, but rather a representation of some of the worst facets of the time, and that's problematic.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not really. I feel like the defense that I would give is that Forrest loves her, and honestly, like whatever she is or isn't, kind of washes away in the fact that Forrest loves her. That's my take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree in the sense that she is not a full character. In that we're only catching bits of her life. Anytime that Forrest runs into her, we're only catching like the little bits here and there. But like we never really get full motivation of why she's doing some things that she's doing, whether rebellion or anything like that. And I assume it all stems back from like the childhood upbringing, but it's very tenuous as to like, is that why exactly? So like she's if Forrest is our lead, like she is like Reed was saying, like the foil to like his m moving on into the times or like introduction into like this new era that he's being.
Right.
She's always like introducing him almost into this new thing happening. But
yeah, for sure.
I really like Jenny, but I would agree that she's more of a concept than a character. But it's a concept I really like because I'm more of a free spirit. I'm not like Forrest, you know. I'm not gonna say sir, yes, sir, because you tell me to.
Right.
I'm gonna kind of do my own thing, and I love that about Jenny. I think that Jenny is constantly preyed upon by every man in her life except for Forrest.
Yeah.
They were grabbing at you, Jenny.
Yeah, that's a big part of this movie too, is that Forrest is kind of the antidote to all these from her father to her activist boyfriend in the 60s, and you know. So yeah, my heart goes out to Jenny, but I do agree, you know, you don't get much of her character. She just sort of floats in and out of the movie as needed to develop Forrest's character, and that's really unfair. That's why I would watch a whole Jenny movie.
Yeah.
I mean, even if this movie was just a little longer, like even if it was like 15 minutes longer and we just spent like a little more time with Jenny outside of Forrest, I don't know. I think it would elevate this movie a lot more than where it is right now. But
well, and I think the film does get mired up, which was part of its selling point at the time, but just has aged poorly. This film gets mired in its gimmick of look at all the places Forrest Gump was.
Right.
And so I feel like that takes up so much real estate of the runtime of the film that we don't, even characters that are stronger and more fleshed out, like Bubba and Lieutenant Dan, I feel like the film really is more in service, not even just to the character of Forrest Gump, but to the look at the technological advancement that can put Forrest Gump in a scene with John F. Kennedy, and you know that's the technological marvel of the.
We didn't talk about Lieutenant Dan, but he's the most interesting character in the movie.
The visual effects in the Gary Sinise stuff when he doesn't have legs,
seamless,
kind of amazing. It's seamless.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like him swinging his legs over the edge of the it's wild.
My opinion on Jenny is, I can totally, like what you guys are saying, I can totally get why that character could be so unlikable, because he's a little bit kind of a bitch. Like, for one thing, like I think the biggest thing is like, see, Sleeps versus Forrest Gump, he didn't necessarily know what's going on, and then like
that's pretty bad. Yeah.
But I feel like Jenny's just a person who's just trying to figure out life, like Gump.
That's why I have so much sympathy for her. Yeah, I love Jenny.
You guys ready to move on? Because this is stretching out to 3 hours.
Yep, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yeah, this is getting long, like Eugene O'Neill long. Look back.
All right, so we got one more main film to discuss.
Yeah, I guess this is mine.
This is it. We're in the
This is such a silly movie to end on. But we got to talk about the comedy Western Maverick, starring
Perfect movie to end on.
Mel
Perfect movie to
Gibson,
end
Jodie
on.
Foster, and James Garner, directed by Richard Donner. It's just okay. So I think I did see this in theaters when it came out. My dad took me to see it.
Mhm.
And Mel Gibson, that's a whole other topic. Scandal noted. Moving on. He's in this movie.
Yep.
It's so funny. There are so many little tiny twists. Every single character in this movie is conning the other characters at every moment. Like, no one is trustworthy. Everyone's on the take. And it's sort of it's very episodic. You just sort of move from scene to scene.
It's based off a TV show.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Sure.
TV show starring James Garner, who plays the elder sort of statesman character in this one.
Marshall Cooper.
Yeah. But the whole thing is just so charming and so good-natured. And even though everybody's a crook and everybody's conning everybody the whole time, you don't ever really get mad at it. Like, even the most despicable characters are sort of fun to watch. Like, Alfred Molina's character, I wouldn't go so far as to say he's likable, but he's fun to watch. I guess the worst one is James Coburn's character, but you don't even really know he's a bad guy until like pretty late. I mean, he shows up late in the movie anyway, but then it's quickly revealed that he's the real bad guy behind everything. But I don't know. It's one of those, I can watch it all the time. It makes me laugh. I think my favorite little segment is the segment with Graham Greene, where I
love Graham Greene.
He visits the native tribe. And they're pretending to be sort of these indigenous stereotypes to please this Russian diplomat who's come over. But really, he's just this regular guy, and as every character in this movie, totally conning everyone. Even Mel Gibson, who's his friend, he cons him.
It's all about the con. Yeah.
I just love these kind of like Sykester, like kind of con man, like kind of charming characters, like Indiana Jones, Han Solo, Jack Sparrow. I love the gun bit at the beginning where he keeps flipping around the gun.
Flipping around his gun. Oh, we playing stud? No, I think we're playing draw. And everybody flinches.
And then he's like, you gotta loosen up, man. I will say, kudos to you, Jackson, for that. Like, Mel Gibson is a problematic figure in the world today, which I understand. But I will say this, and I will say it without an asterisk. The man is an exceptional actor, and he's a wonderful performer, and knows how to inhabit a scene and charm his way through the scene. That is neither an absolution nor an indictment of his personal life and his personal struggles. But every time I watch him in a movie, I'm like, he was just a born actor. Like, he's just good at inhabiting the space. And he's fantastic in this film as a performance.
I love him and
wonderful screen pairing
back and forth, and that you're a player when in the middle of a poker match you got like an hour break, and what you choose to do with your hour break is to bang Jodie Foster. Get on you, Maverick. Get on you.
Jodie Foster's so great in this too. They have this
wonderful screwball energy throughout the whole movie. This like, Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant kind of antagonistic back and forth, but the chemistry is sizzling the whole time.
Oh man, Jackson, good on you for citing the word screwball, because that, I think, is the tone that this film is going for, is this like
100%
situational comedy kind of thing. And it gets a little, I actually don't mind it. I kind of like it, but it gets a little mired down in the twists. Like, the twists are so abundant. They're almost like hat on a hat at some point, where it's just kind of like, oh my God. But it definitely has that screwball comedy kind of vibe. That's very fun and is very engaging. I love the little winks that the film constantly does.
Like when Danny Glover shows up,
and
they just kind of regard each other briefly.
Keep looking at each other like, wait a minute, what?
And then Danny Glover, of course, has to say his line from Lethal Weapon.
Right.
Great. So great.
Which, when I was a kid, I didn't get that. I didn't get that until much, much later.
Oh yeah.
I was
man.
11 when I saw this
too old for
movie.
this shit.
And then later, I'm just like, oh, that's what that joke was.
Yeah. That was the three of them together. You know, Donner directed the Lethal Weapon.
Exactly.
Yes.
So he
And
had
then,
to do it. He had to do it.
So
And it's just a throwaway little bit that easily
It
could have been
doesn't have
cut
anything
out.
to do with anything. It's just
Yeah.
there.
this movie was designed for entertainment. You know, like you're
Right.
not supposed to think too hard about it. You're not supposed to walk away with any profound whatever. It's just designed to be entertaining. And I think it succeeds. I think it's a very entertaining.
I think so,
Have a good time for 2 hours. You want to have a good time in a movie there for 2 hours? Come see Maverick.
Yeah, that is exactly it. That is exactly it. And its returns, I was happy to find, are a little stronger than I thought they would be. So yeah.
Yeah, because it's
good.
so packed with little jokes and little cons. And like, have you ever noticed that during the final poker game, the dealer switches out the deck?
Oh yeah.
I didn't even catch that this time.
It's so
didn't even
fast.
see it, yeah.
It's so fast, but like you watch it again, it's like right before the final hand, the dealer like pulls the deck back and he switches it with a different deck.
Oh
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
done like that. It's just one shot, but and
Yeah,
doesn't
it's a
call
fun
attention to it at all, but it's definitely there.
Awesome. Do we want to say anything else about this movie, or do you want to say something here?
I don't think there's that much to say about it, but
Netflix.
man, it's fun. It's just pure fun.
Yeah, and I just love hearing Jodie Foster do a Southern accent. That's just
Which is not even that good of a Southern accent, and it's implied in the movie that it's a fake accent.
right.
But she never drops it, and it's very charming.
Right. Okay, so that's our picks, and we got some honorable mentions, and I'll go first. So I just want to shout out Shawshank Redemption. I think that's an amazing movie. Also, Lion King, childhood classic. True Lies, which I got a story about real quick. The Mask, which was another childhood classic because it plays off of cartoons, and I love cartoons as a kid. And then Angels in the Outfield, another childhood classic.
Speaking of Danny Glover, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so my True Lies story is I remember I watched this at the very end of it one time, really enjoyed it, and now I knew Jamie Lee Curtis from like Freaky Friday and she was in Halloween. A year after I watched the end of this movie, I was just channel flipping and I got to the part when she does the striptease and I'm like, holy God. Jamie Lee Curtis is smoking hot.
And it's not the kind of persona she has as an actor, but man, she goes for it.
Yeah.
Like she just goes for it.
But she plays up the comedy of the moment.
She does
pretty well.
too. So
and she
it's doing two things at once. Yeah.
Yeah. And she and Schwarzenegger had great I mean, God, I can't help but love Schwarzenegger. I mean, like he's another one that's like love him or hate him for personal stuff. Like, I mean, just whenever he's on screen, I'm just like, I like this dude.
Schwarzenegger like campaigned her to have her name on the poster.
Yeah, that's and she I watched the Schwarzenegger documentary where they interviewed her about that, and she's like, I'm so grateful that
absolutely
the biggest star in the world fought for me to get a big credit on this movie. Yeah.
And really at that point she'd kind of fallen off for a bit. In that period in the 90s. So
the late 80s, early 90s, she wasn't doing I can't think of anything that she was really doing that much. Yeah.
She'd had a couple of failed attempts to try to break out of the stereotypes that she kept getting pigeonholed into. But like Trading Places was pretty big for her.
She's great in that.
But that was the 80s. And she's really good in that.
Exactly. But I always forget this is Cameron. Always forget this is James
because it's such an outlier in his filmography. It seems like such a small potatoes movie.
I need to go into rant mode.
Fun
I don't know
smart.
what these 4K enthusiasts are smoking by saying that this 4K looks terrible. This 4K looks amazing. I just bought it. It looks incredible. Okay.
I didn't see it in 4K, but I would believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Terminator 2 looks amazing. It's one of my best 4Ks that I own. So I'm sorry. I don't look at all the little details in here, but I just gotta go to rant mode. These movies look incredible on 4K.
The one other thing I would say about this movie, and then we'll move on, but like the reason that James Cameron made this movie is because it's a remake of like a French film.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
And Schwarzenegger saw the French film and went to James Cameron and is like, I won't do the voice. He's like, I think we should remake this. I could really do something with this character. And James Cameron's like, you know, when Arnold Schwarzenegger comes to you and says something like that, you just take it. You just got to do it.
Yeah. It felt like James Cameron in the 90s was very much just like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Like they came to him and were just like, hey, we got money to make Terminator 2. He's like, okay, I'll write you a script, whatever.
Right.
Like he was just game for whatever at that point.
All right. Reed, where are your honorable mentions?
Oh man, I was gonna ask to go last so that because I have like a list of like 10, and I was gonna have other people knock them down.
I was gonna have a list of 10 as well.
Eric, go.
Oh, me go? Okay.
I deflected. Yes.
Well, I'll start. I'm gonna name off all of them because I love all these movies. But
Sure.
I'm not gonna talk. I won't talk about any of them. I'll just name them off in general. But I really love Serial Mom, Hudsucker Proxy, Shallow Grave, New Nightmare, Heavenly Creatures, Speed, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Hoop Dreams, and then lastly, Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead.
Phantasm 3. My favorite Phantasm sequel is Part 4, but I do love Lord of the Dead.
Awesome. I love 3. 3 is the one I watched on TV as a kid. That was maybe my first Phantasm movie, and so that's why I got a place in my heart for it. But
I get it. Oh, I get it.
Jackson, go.
I don't know. You've got 4 Weddings and a Funeral. You've got In the Mouth of Madness. Iron Will. Wyatt Earp, which is very different from Tombstone, but I think is kind of underrated in that way. You got Hoop Dreams came out that year.
Hoop Dreams is amazing.
You know, Natural Born Killers came out that year, which is I don't think it's a great movie, but it's very notable.
It's something
in its way. Yeah. And then the one I really love, and this is technically a mini series, but it's on Letterboxd as a single film, which is Ken Burns' documentary Baseball.
Oh yeah,
great
docuseries. Just a beautiful poetic history of baseball as a sport and as an American institution. Is so good. Yeah,
Ken Burns is still the gold standard for documentary filmmakers.
And I didn't mention Leon.
Oh, the professional.
Professional.
God.
So good. Yeah.
So fantastic.
How many? Everyone.
Oh God, that is so great. That is so great. All right, I'll take the same cue. I'll just rattle off a list. I might pause a second or two on these. So I was gonna up top name. Look, there's not too much to say about this film, but I'm a Star Trek nerd, so I got to give some love to Star Trek Generations, the first film that we got from the Next Generation
cast.
That's
a solid one, yeah.
Yeah, it pit, Kirk and Picard together for the first time. I gotta give some love. Look, you said earlier it's a great for family films. The Santa Claus came out this year. Santa Claus is a bona fide classic. You know,
it's a weird one, but it
is
very watchable and fun.
Yeah, it's still a lot of fun. You gave some love to The Professional. I still really love that film. We talked earlier about Dumb and Dumber, which Dumb and Dumber is a wonderful, wonderful comedy. Still holds up. Speed. I'm so glad that the John Wick films are finally giving Keanu Reeves the flowers that he was denied so much while he was getting bangers like Speed and The Matrix for the action star that he always was.
Point Break too.
Point Break. Yeah. Come on. Speed is an action film that holds up. That is a great flick.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a really great flick.
Yep.
You mentioned In the Mouth of Madness, which I love. Eric, you mentioned New Nightmare, which I love. I think we've given some love to The Mask. I was really fond of the miniseries The Stand, which Drew mentioned early on. I gotta give some props to an underrated sci-fi classic, Stargate, starring Kurt Russell.
It was 94. It was 94. Yeah.
Stargate's a great little flick, man. It's
Kurt
fun.
Russell.
Yeah, Kurt Russell.
Hard
Can't
to
go wrong with Kurt Russell. And I also just wanted to lump together an encapsulation of 90s spy thrillers and 90s legal thrillers with two films that aren't fantastic examples, but they're still kind of in that ethos. So I'm going to wrap up the spy thrillers with the Jack Ryan's Harrison Ford as Jack Ryan, Clear and Present Danger, which is my favorite of the Jack Ryan films. Really, really strong. And then also the legal thrillers with The Client, starring old Tommy Lee Jones and Susan Sarandon and John Grisham stuff. So, but those films are not high watermarks themselves on their own, but they represent a kind of flavor that pervaded the 90s of spy thrillers and legal thrillers, stuff like that. So, but yeah, those were my honorable mentions. 94 was a great year, y'all. Like 94 was a solid. All the films we've talked about, the films we've mentioned that we didn't talk about, 94 is a solid slate. You could easily have made a top 25, and you're gonna have to be hard pressed to get to a film that is just actively bad. There's so many solid.
I was born on that year.
Yep, and that's why it was such a great movie year. Is because Drew was born. We're like, we gotta get this going.
Pump out all the good stuff.
Let me see. Let me see if I can name some that are actively bad.
Oh God.
Ooh,
there's
name
Color
one.
of Night.
Ooh,
Color of Night's pretty actively bad.
Color of Night. The Page Master is that year. That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
I've got a childhood fondness for that movie. So
that's the thing.
I can't argue that one. Yeah,
that's the thing.
But none of these are super bad. I mean, yeah.
You got to work hard, you know. Like we didn't.
Movie.
Yeah,
we didn't even
and
came
out
into,
much later.
We didn't even get into like some great foreign films that came out this year. You know, like the Three Colors trilogy. And,
that was wrapping up at that time.
What was the Bellatar movie that came out? It was like 7 hours long.
Oh,
Satan
I remember.
Tango?
Like Santiago,
Satan Tango.
Yeah. Tango, yeah.
Brooklyn, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, 94 is a great year, man. 94 is a great year.
Good year.
So real quick, I forgot to mention this up top. This morning, Eric actually dropped off my birthday present. And if you guys don't mind, I'm actually going to open it right now.
Oh, right here?
Yep.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. You should do this on air.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's not that bad. It's
and he said he wasn't going to edit
good
this.
luck.
So
oh, my goodness.
So this is it.
Yeah.
I hope you like it.
Montel.
I don't know.
Jurassic World of John Hammett collection. So it's Jurassic Park related, I'm assuming.
Or that's just a box I put it in.
Maybe see what it is. And then got a little letter.
Oh, that's
birthday
awesome.
Drew. Oh, and by the way, when this is posted, I'm seeing Judas Priest today.
I hope you love it, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. Hey, got another box of some sort.
Oh, it's just like a box within a box within a box. Like it is multiple boxes. Yeah, within a box.
Oh.
It's like on the Flight of the Conchords where it's like, oh, it's my favorite box.
Right.
Oh, Jurassic Park.
Oh, the suspense.
Oh, nice!
I think he likes it.
Dude! It's a Steven Spielberg action figure directed.
Oh my goodness. That's actually pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's Spielberg directing Jurassic Park as an action figure.
Man. Happy birthday to you, dude. That
neat.
is such a Drew gift.
Dude.
Oh,
yeah, that's perfect.
Oh my God. Okay, I gotta give you a virtual hug.
Happy birthday, Drew.
Oh my God.
That's pretty awesome.
I saw it pop up, and I was just like, "Yeah, that's
the ultimate Drew.
That's the right gift to give." Yeah,
dude, I don't even know if I want to take this out of the box because like the box is.
You don't have to. That's why I send it with all the boxes, so that you can choose whether to take it out or not. It's up to you at this point.
And
the box itself is very cool.
Yeah.
For the people listening, it's like a clapboard. And the top has a hinge, and it's actually, you can be like, rolling sound, click. Yeah,
and he has the classic dinosaur Andy Warhol shirt that he wore while making the movie.
Pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I didn't even know they made this.
They made very limited figures of it. It was
Oh my
released around
God.
the 30th anniversary last year.
Okay, so
They're
I
hard to come
actually,
by. So not just honking my own horn, but also but
yeah,
also but also just wanting to wish you a happy birthday.
yeah.
So
So I just made a Steven Spielberg collection, or like little swine on,
mhm,
I'm on top of there. I'm not gonna say it. I'll take a picture of it later. That's
sure.
going up there,
That's awesome.
dude.
Feels
Oh
like it's the right
my
place
God.
to put
I
it.
can't,
Right.
dude. I can't thank you enough for buying that for me. Wow,
Happy birthday.
my birthday present to you is kind of lame now.
You got time. My birthday's not till
Yeah.
August. You have plenty of time to make this better.
But anyways, guys, I know this has been a long video.
I think this is
Long
our
ep-
longest video ever for sure.
It
Yeah.
might be up
Like
there with Lord of the Rings. 'Cause Lord of
Three
the
and a
Rings,
half hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, guys, if you like this episode, I actually real quick got to mention this too. I hope you like my new intro that I made for the show. I added more sci-fi stuff to it.
This is
So
nice. It's
yeah.
good.
So,
Nice
anyways,
stick.
if you like this episode and you want to see more spooky and weird content, make sure you slap that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on Facebook and Twitter at For Sci-Fi and Beyond. And don't forget to leave this episode a killer comment and give it a King Kong size thumbs up. And remember, stay weird.